Good morning, everybody. It is 8 a.m., Saturday, May 4th, and I'd like to call to order the meeting, special board meeting of the Othello School District Board of Directors. This is our annual retreat in Priest Lake, Idaho. Before we approved the agenda yesterday, when I was home for lunch, I was doing kind of a last time over on the agenda and realized that last year we had an executive session where we discussed the comments of the superintendent evaluation surveys, because those would be considered, some of them would be considered complaints, so that is protected by executive session. And so if the board is inclined, we would add an executive session just to read and discuss those comments. I would expect it would be half an hour, and that would be the only purpose of it. We would not take any action afterwards. So with that, I'll accept a motion for any change or approval of the agenda.
I move that we add the executive session under D, assurance of organizational performance, for 30 minutes.
Would you like to do that right after we review the surveys themselves, the survey results?
Yes, I think comments would be perfect right after we review the surveys.
Okay. There's been a motion by Director Stevenson. Second by Director Garza. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
I'd like a motion we approve the agenda with the addition of the executive session.
I think that was the motion.
I moved that we just added it. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, there's been a motion then to approve it with the addition. By Director Garza, second by Director Ronatz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries again. So we'll probably have to do a quick reload and we will.
You said after the comments, just open it up.
Under number
Yeah, just make it public, that's all you
D2.
can do.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So we're actually going to start the meeting with the first executive session. The purpose of this executive session is to discuss potential real estate purchase or lease. And again, no action will be taken following this session. So we're going to recess right now. The expectation of this will be 30 minutes, so we will reconvene at 8:35. All right, so when we went to executive session, it was apparent that some of these discussions really should be in public, so we're going to actually start some of these discussions now regarding food services and our food storage needs. We will then break into executive session when it comes down to talking about potential lease things. So we wanted this to be part of our public discussion. So we are actually on a video chat with Pete Perez and Greg Fultz. It might be difficult to hear on the audio for anyone who's listening later, and I apologize because we're kind of Skyped in with them or Google Hangouts, so we'll put the audio up by the computer that they're on, so apologize in advance if it's not very audible. But the slides they'll be referring to are in the board agenda, and so those can be looked at by anybody.
Under board development and linkage board discussions, it's the OSD food service needs.
So we're kind of jumping ahead to that agenda item, then we'll go back to the executive session. Okay. All right, Pete, sorry, go ahead.
All right, well, we'll like to share with you the story that the folks that serve our students meals every day are telling about their needs for additional storage. The need is driven by several factors. Those factors include our community's participation in the Community Eligibility Program. Free meals for every student in our district has increased participation. There's also a mandate from the state related to a new program called Breakfast After the Bell. So next year, our students will have an opportunity, K-8. They will be served a meal in the classroom. We will no longer be serving breakfast in the traditional setting that we have been. And at the high school, they'll have an opportunity for something called second chance or second breakfast, and it'll be a grab-and-go situation. Everyone will still have to be scanned. We'll still be tracking all that information, but it is going to increase participation. That's the entire goal of that program that the state sent out. There's also been an additional need based on the reconfiguration of schools and the increased student population, particularly at the elementaries. Our initiative around preschool has also increased demand for food service. And we have some issues and concerns about the kitchen at DOHS and whether or not it's suitable as a space for a commercial kitchen to serve the number of kids that we have there. So Greg and I are here to share the story from the perspective of Jeanette Root, our food services director, and her staff. So we're excited to have that opportunity this morning. Next slide, please, Leah, is an illustration that we've added to sort of give the theme of this presentation and the sense that folks are feeling there. This is a circumstance that is being created by the mandates that we just shared with you, but also over time, increasing student population and just changes to the system. And I think the feeling amongst the food service folks is this isn't a priority. Certainly hasn't risen to the level of classroom space and instructional space and those conversations that have been going on for several years in our system. And that food service is often not a significant part of those. Again, that's the feeling out there. Next slide. Really two themes for our presentation. One is about we don't have adequate space. It's in an emergency state. We get several large orders from Food Service of America on Monday and Thursday. And what that requires now is that every box is handled up to 5 times. It's taken off the truck, it's set on the floor, it's loaded onto a delivery truck, back onto the floor at the school, into the refrigerator, and the time crunch and the necessity to handle those items has dramatically increased because of a lack of storage. And their feeling is that this really is an emergency state. There's also an interest in prepping for the future, anticipated enrollment growth, the adjustments that we have with grade configurations, what that's going to mean to each site. But certainly they are feeling the pinch, and we also, just as a point of reference, we participate in the fresh fruit and vegetable program, and so we get large shipments on Tuesday. We would be able to, hear some of this a little bit later in the presentation. There's an opportunity to provide a higher quality of food from Jeanette's perspective if we have the ability to store it appropriately. Next slide. We're going to share with you some of the numbers and some imagery of what happens each day. We currently serve approximately 250 breakfasts per school, and that's about 40% participation, 45%. We're expecting that to increase, where the goal is really 80% participation. So a significant increase next year, and that they're going to have a challenge handling all those items. Are we going to be able to get all those pieces in place daily in our current state? And if not, is a new storage facility part of the plan, or are temporary measures the most appropriate? That's what we're asking the board to consider. Next slide is around lunch. We already have experienced an increase because of the community eligibility program. We've had to relocate some of our dry storage and purchase containers to help facilitate that program. So these are, again, temporary and not intended to be sustainable options. One of the factors that Jeanette shared with us was you're not able to claim reimbursement for meals if you don't provide all the key components for that meal that are required. If we had a situation where we weren't able to store the food, or we didn't have it on hand and a truck couldn't make it here, it's just around $14,000 impact daily if we weren't able to request reimbursement for those meals. So the potential for impact is certainly significant if we ran into an emergency situation. And so driving this, part of this request is we could have those supplies on hand in bulk if we had a place to store them. It just doesn't exist right now. Next slide. These are shots of cooler items. It looks like, I'm not sure what size it is, high school. But Janice shared with us pretty clearly that the quality of the food she thinks could be better. We're in a situation now where we often serve fruits that are frozen or fruit cups, processed rather than fresh, just because we can store so much more of that. The shelf space can handle that, but not the bulk of fresh items. Again, we're going to experience a dramatic increase in participation with breakfast after the bell implementation, so that image will become more intense for them. One of the other pieces she shared specific to milk was that we typically take about 300 cases of milk per week, and particularly on the day when we serve chocolate milk in our system, we have a significant increase in student participation, which is the goal of breakfast after the bell and community eligibility. But we're not able to store that milk, so we only do it one day a week. She expects that we would have a dramatic increase in student participation in our meal program if we have those options around chocolate milk. What seems like a simple fix or simple switch, she's not able to manage, but we get at the heart of these mandates related to meals for kids. Next slide. There are times where the limited storage space forces Jeanette to consider changes to the menu, just because we don't have a place to store it. And so she's concerned about the impact that has on her programming. Also back to sort of these emergency idea, if something did happen, if the pass was closed, if a truck didn't arrive, if that happened after a couple of days, if we had a shelter-in-place situation, we don't have a place right now where we're storing bulk water for every student and staff member, where we have dry goods on hand, that kind of thing. And so additional storage would allow us to feel like we're prepared, and I think certainly from Greg's position as a safety director, he's looked at that and had conversations with Jeanette about that would be an added benefit to these additional storage spaces.
I have a question about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So is there like a requested amount that we have, like length of time that we're prepared for a shelter-in-place situation?
No, not requested time. It'd be nice to have at least one bottle of water for each student. If we lost water in the city at 10 a.m., we wouldn't send the kids home until school was over. But it'd be nice to have some extra water on hand just to give to the kids.
So you're not even trying to come up with like a 24-hour concept or something, it's just supply space, period, concepts?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're going to transition into some of the square footage facts and student enrollment pieces, and Greg's going to take the lead on that portion.
Okay, so I tried to come up with some numbers that would make sense. So there's a legend for the next few slides to give you an idea of, these aren't concrete numbers, these were just trying to get an idea of what kind of storage we have in place, where we've come from, and why we're asking for what we're asking for. So, if you see this, we're going to talk about the year that the building was built, dry, refrigerated, frozen storage, the student count of the building at the time, and then student capacity, and that's how just to have a baseline for how I did student capacity, that was the formula I used. So next slide. So at the high school, 1998 was our last remodel. We had 700 square foot of dry space, 150 square foot of refrigerated space, and 170 square foot of frozen space. And student capacity was about 855. I couldn't get a student count for that time. Here we are, 2019, 20 years later, we still have the same amount of dry storage there, the same amount of refrigerated storage, but we were lucky enough to double our frozen space back in 2000. Just after the remodel, they noticed they needed more freezer space. And that's particular because they used that freezer for the whole district. And now you can see our student capacity based on the added square footage we've added since 1999 is up to 1144 on that calculation, and our 128. But we really haven't increased any capacity anywhere for the food storage.
So Greg, just to be, I'm trying to be clear on your graph here, your table. Student capacity is the capacity that we're able to serve based on the square footage?
No, capacity, I just wanted to get, the capacity I came up with was trying to come up with the capacity of the total building, of number of students we could teach in that building, not necessarily serve.
Okay, gotcha.
Because we can always figure out a way to serve those kids, whether 2, 3, 4 lunches or...
Gotcha. So student capacity is based on, and that's part I think I missed, based on the educational space.
Education phase.
Okay.
And really, the student capacity, like I said, it's not a set in stone number, it's just something to give us a baseline to compare what our student count is and how it's changed over the years, and how our storage space has not changed when you look at each graph for each school.
Okay.
Desert Oasis, 2013 we remodeled that building, had 72 students, now it's 86-ish. We're looking at increasing the students in that building also, but we're not changing any storage space there. That's LMS built in 1965. Back then, based on the number of teaching spaces, capacity was 505. Now, the remodel from 2010, 903. Portables, we're at 1047. But our dry, refrigerated, and frozen spaces is only doubled, where our student capacity is doubled. And that seems like, well, everything doubled, but the amount of food the students eat doesn't equate to the amount of students in the building. I mean, the amount of food you have to store and keep there for them to eat it doesn't always equate that way. And then as we go through the slide scrutiny, back in 1991, we just used a reach-in freezer refrigerator with a student capacity of 483. And in 2011, we went to 65 square foot of refrigerated, 145 square foot of frozen. Went up about 150 students to 615. And these charts that I came up with don't take into account the changes in regulation that Jeanette's had to deal with over the last 10 years of what you have to serve and what products have to be on, and fruits, vegetables, sugars, salts, colors. So it's just really to give an idea of how much space we have in the district. Hiawatha, you can see in Hiawatha, we have just about the same amount of dry storage space we had in 1965. But we've increased the capacity of the building, we've changed the regulations, we've gained a little bit in refrigerated and frozen space. Ludicava, we've come a long way at Ludicava. It's actually one of the better elementary schools for space. From zero dry storage in 1991 to 230 square feet in 2010, and adding a walk-in freezer and cooler. But still not quite large enough for the amount of food that we're running through that building each day. And then district-wide, prior to 2016, we utilized each facility and the high school to accommodate. And in 2016, we were fortunate enough to get the old bus facility, which gave us 3,400 square foot of dry storage space, and we filled it up right away. Gave us the opportunity to do deliveries to the buildings, change the program just a little bit, and offer some better options. And then when you look on this slide, the student count obviously is much higher than student capacity. But with using the same formula I was using on the previous slide, number of teaching stations based on the numbers per classroom at 83%, that's what student capacity came out to for that slide.
So I have a quick question on the frozen square footage that started in 2017. Are those the storage units that are out at the bus garage location off to the side?
Yes.
That's what that square footage is. Okay. And we have 3 out there right now? Or
We
2?
have 3.
Okay. Just to confirm. Okay, thank you.
And those freezer units we purchased them knowing they were close to end of life. Figured we'd get 5 years out of them for the price we paid as a temporary solution. We had one break down this year. It was fairly expensive to fix. Took a lot of time to get the parts. They're not an ideal solution for long term. So our current storage or shortage we feel is 1,500 square foot of dry space and 3,000 square foot of refrigerated space. And the refrigerated space is the big one. For us, since we have the temporary units out at the bus garage, we don't have anywhere to handle the volume of milk and fresh fruits and vegetables that we want to bring into these students. Excuse me.
So we're going to transition into potential opportunities and savings. These are options that we've discussed certainly with Greg and with Jeanette and with other leaders in our system to talk about what are some, again, opportunities. What are some things we could think about that an additional facility might allow us to consider? So the initial one is around injury risk reduction. Certainly not something that you can predict, but we know that we can make spaces safer and use them for their intended purpose. The temporary facilities that we're using that are out at the ORTC, there's a high risk of falls out there based on the design. We also have this incredible number of items that have to be handled individually, and lifting and picking up certainly just creates more opportunity for risk. And we certainly believe that if we're able to handle that in a bulk setting, with some tools of the trade, whatever those may be, rather than physical labor, that we certainly reduce the risk and liability potential to the district. So that's one that we would offer as a potential saving.
Are we currently having many L&I claims with the entire,
that are attributable to this?
yes, that are attributable to,
So we've been lucky. Our actual claims are low, but every maintenance person, including myself and Orlin, have fallen in there. We don't fill out an accident report for a little cut all the time, so, but it just takes one wrong fall for a back, and when everyone's fallen already and we're all scared to work in there, we're just waiting for it to happen.
okay, I just wanted to see if we had like specific numbers there, but it's more of the concern, is what you're saying. We haven't had huge issues and big claims yet.
Go ahead.
It's being more preventative than
Right,
reacting to.
Well, because it says reduction, so preventative is, so that's just what I wanted to confirm, that it's preventative instead of reduction of.
It's preventive, yes.
Okay, perfect.
The next potential opportunity is around improving food quality. Again, a reference to chocolate milk and increasing student participation, fresh fruits and vegetables versus frozen and prepackaged, and then just this dramatic increase in the number of meals per week, and the mandates that come from the state and federal level about what we're required to serve. When the slides that Greg was taking the lead on, you can certainly see that it might equate student to space, but the number of items required has certainly changed dramatically. The next potential opportunity for cost savings would be related to the facility itself that is being considered, and whether or not, if we are able to locate a space, could we sublease portions of that as we plan for growth. Another opportunity for cost savings would be these on-site cooler rentals that we have going. Greg's done some legwork in finding out what that might cost to have a temporary solution, but certainly that's an ongoing cost. The next one is around the storage and repairs that were mentioned earlier to those temporary containers. And then more specifically to food service, is this bulk buying opportunity, not unlike perhaps many of us do through a large warehouse sort of box stores where we go in and buy in bulk to experience a savings. Jeanette is not able to do that just because she doesn't have a place to store the food. But certainly we would experience some savings there. Recently she was able to contact Food Service of America and know that hey, we could take bulk orders, but they would have to leave a reefer on site for us to use as a storage place. I think the calculation that she ended up with would be about $32,000 annually for them to come in and leave a reefer here for us to use. So that's another sort of temporary solution to the issue, but it's going to have a cost associated with it. The next one around employee satisfaction, I think it's similar to the feedback that we sometimes get related to modulars or portables for teaching staff. It'll work, but it's not ideal. And I think the folks in food service are certainly feeling the pinch of working in spaces that are very cramped and very tight, and in their estimation are not adequate for them to perform their jobs in the best way possible.
And Pete, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Number 4, their employee satisfaction. Besides Jeanette from Food Group, does she have others on her team at these meetings where you guys put this together? Is she the sole voice for the entire group, or how's that happening?
Yeah, I would say that we do meet with Jeanette. She brings her information. She's also had Mandy McDonald has been there as part of the conversation. The day-to-day imagery and going out and looking at stuff, I would defer to Greg. He's out and about, and I think can certainly speak to what folks share with him.
That's definitely the warehouse people feel it the most. They get the deliveries in that need to be dealt with right away because they don't have the facility to just hold it and get to it when they need to. Coming in on no school days, to get that food delivered out at certain times. But also in the smaller schools, Hiawatha, Scootney, the smaller kitchens, those cooks feel the strain in that small space. They don't have all the equipment they feel they would need to provide the food quality that they want to give. Instead, it has to be made on site somewhere else and then brought over, it works, but it isn't ideal.
Thank you.
Yep. Slide 24, Leah, just talks about, and these are other potential opportunities that we think would need to be certainly more fleshed out, but the concepts are there, and the thinking behind them is if we had a large space that not only included the food storage needs for refrigerated and dry and frozen, that was large enough, we could also begin to consider centralized delivery for custodial items, for items for the school sites. We could consider centralized printing and perhaps capture a savings related to printer and toner cartridges and bulk printing for our sites. We could purchase paper in bulk and not burden the maintenance folks and the school sites for having to make smaller purchases, bulk custodial items. We've also discussed internally the potential of if we had a space that was large enough, that could we free up that building on the high school campus, and is that worth an investment and a remodel to create 2 or 3 classrooms? Those are some of the big picture ideas that are out there and savings that could be experienced if we had the space to use. That concludes that portion of our presentation. We certainly would entertain any questions from the board.
So are there any questions of the board specific to what's been talked about so far? Now, the next part of the slides are some ideas about an existing facility that could be remodeled to fit the needs and be a lease. We do know that I believe there's a $10 million estimate for building a facility like this. So we want to look at potential lease option. Do we want to go into executive session to talk about the lease opportunity, or do we want to finish out the public part of this going into the portables? What would the board like to do?
Let's do the portables, so we don't have to come back.
Okay, so if we can just skip ahead to the portables, Pete, and then we'll have that discussion, then we'll go to executive session, talk about some lease specifics.
Well, one of the questions that I was asked to consider was, I think from the board group that came up with a concept about facility needs across the district that included 9 portables for Othello High School, and why that hadn't risen to the top of our list. I guess I would start it off with what I've learned since that question came my way is that proposal that came from the site was really driven by the elimination or the need to house students to remodel or rebuild 600 wing. That the number of classrooms in there are reflected in that request for 9 portables. And so that's where the thinking came from. But I did want to share just 3 slides with the board to provide some context and sort of 3 to 5 year planning that might be required for Othello High School. The first slide indicates the number of warm bodies, the kids that are in our system, and that's just going to be on our campus. So we know we're growing. The Running Start kids, you'll see a gradual increase. We use the calculation percentage based on our historical participation in Running Start. And then next year we that because some juniors are already in Running Start, so we know that number's not going to go up.
Quick question, just to clarify for the recording, when you say warm bodies, you're talking about 9 through 12 at OSD, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So that breaks down into Running Start, Othello High School, and DOHS.
Exactly.
Got it, okay.
Desert Oasis, we know the capacity is we're running at around 80, but there are some programmatic changes that we're considering at DOHS based on a partnership with the Office of School and System Improvement. It was a grant that the district received to consider ways to improve and enhance our services to get more kids to the graduation stage. So we have some exciting opportunities coming our way at DOHS that are going to, we think, lead to a potential increase in student participation. Othello High School is going to be what it is based on the kids who go to Running Start or select DOHS as their site. And then you see that we have this increase in the number of students and the percentage over time. I wanted to provide context for the board so they know, hey, in 2023, 24, we're going to have about 1,250 students at that high school. The next slide provides some clarity around what Greg referred to in his teaching stations. This includes every teacher at Othello High School, certificated folks, and they're about 57. And so you see the current student-teacher ratio. If we don't add any teachers, if we don't need any additional teaching spaces, you can see what happens to that ratio over time. At DOHS, what we did is a slight increase in teacher FTE because we know we've committed to smaller class sizes and we're going to increase enrollment there, so with the students come the staff. So this is just meant to provide, if we don't do anything and add additional staff, which means we wouldn't need additional teaching stations, that's what it's going to mean to the site itself.
So Peter, quick question regarding warm bodies. Is this based on the cohort survival of currently what we have in the lower grade levels and then the expectation of what we'll have when they move into the high school?
Yeah, we actually maxed it out at 100%. We just rolled everybody up.
So do you feel like the 2023-2024 school year will be the peak of that, and then that bubble of high class sizes will it drop off, do you think, just based on what our current enrollment is K through 5? Do you expect a drop off if nothing else changed as far as new students coming into the district in the middle grade levels? Does that make sense?
I think the short answer to that is we didn't build it out beyond that 5-year mark. We were looking at this as, would we need the portables in the next couple of years? I think certainly that question needs to be answered to say, what does it look like in the next 8 or the next 10? But we did not build that data out for the purposes of this, but that's certainly something we could put together pretty quickly.
Well, the comment I'd just like to make for the recording and for the board is that I believe that our biggest class of the big class that came through is currently in 6th grade, or 5th grade, sorry, maybe 5th grade. And after that, those class sizes do drop off and kind of level out, kind of peaked out at that 400 student level. So my expectation is then at least the following 4 years, I mean, right now, unless something drastic changed as far as students coming in the middle grades, we would see a little bit of a decrease of those numbers in high school rather than an increase. So I just want to make that comment. And I know we can't predict the future, but that's just based on who we currently have in our system.
Yeah, okay. Slide 29, Aaliyah, is, so this one gets a little more, it's going to need some additional clarity for folks who don't build master schedules, and there are very few folks in our system that do that. But what you see here is, this year we needed 39 teachers minimum to have a seat for every student in every period. That's what that means. If you wanted every kid to have a seat at the table, you have to have 39 people working at once. So you could have up to 18 folks on prep. Well, really, we only have 8 to 10 on prep. So there's certainly some capacity there. This accounts for SPED, ELL, and some of the advanced courses that just by their nature have smaller class sizes. So when you look at the student count coming out over time, if we didn't increase the number of staff and necessary teaching stations, then really in 2021-22 is when it starts to get tight. That's the correct day. And we have to make some critical choices about student placement in courses. But with the current reality, we still hit that number of staff on prep. So if we didn't add any portables or additional teaching stations, or have a roaming teacher who taught on a cart, the principal and his staff and the counselors who I met with yesterday during their master scheduling, they felt comfortable with saying for the next 3 years they would have adequate spacing. Now, it does not mean that they don't want additional space for assessments, perhaps additional SPED classrooms. We're offering some great courses in music, and when we offer 2 music courses at once, they have to find a temporary home. So certainly there's a want there, and we would have to consider that perspective, but the need for physical space and seats, there isn't a current need for the 9 portables, which is the question we were asked to consider.
So then the 21-22 year is the last year that we can go without the portables, is what you're saying according to this slide.
According to that slide, what would happen is we're gonna max out the number of seats available for every student. We're getting really close to that line. But again, if it is considering additional teaching spaces, are there other ways to capture that on that campus? If we vacate the tech building, if we place a couple portables on site, if we have teachers roam and teach on a cart, are there other ways to get at the number of teaching seats? Yes, but we need to strongly consider those options in preparation for 2021-22.
Okay. So if the board doesn't have any more questions about the portal, I mean, we're everyone clear on that. I appreciate that, Pete. I know it's difficult, but we obviously in the facility committee heard the needs come from the high school, and we don't deny there's needs, but this I think helps us as a board to prioritize going forward, because we're having lengthy facility discussions about this. So thank you for that. I think now then we're ready to take a quick recess and then go into executive session. And how long will you need for that, would you say, Pete, for that executive session?
Our portion, probably just 15 minutes, not knowing how many questions or comments might come from the board.
So knowing that we have to go in for the full amount, does the board want to go with 20 minutes and then come back into it if we need to? Sure. Does that feel to just be as efficient as possible. Okay, so we're going to recess for a couple minutes here, and then we'll go into executive session for 20. The plan will be to come out of executive session at 9:15. So we are out of executive session, back into our regular session. I guess I should ask, does the board need a recess, bathroom break or anything like that, or are we good to keep going?
Like another 30 minutes and then do that?
Okay. So we are into board discussions. We're continuing that. We had the discussion about food service needs. What I wanted to discuss was more of the facility needs that we've been discussing now for 5 months with the committee, and then morphing into the board talking about it. One of the things that I want to talk about is identifying some needs and then talking about potential funding for that. Does the board feel like we could say, we can start to prioritize what we need right now? We just learned some new things from the presentation we got from Pete Perez and Greg Foltz. That changes my thinking a little bit. I don't know if the rest of the board...
Yes, but I think that we've all asked questions, that we need to have those questions answered before we can come up with priorities. Does that make sense? Because I want to have some of those questions that we've either asked in executive session or before answered, before we can say, here's our number one priorities, because some of those answers could change those priorities for me.
Gotcha. Okay. Does the rest of the board feel?
Yeah.
So what specifically, Jack, can you share specifically questions that you asked that you would like answers to, so that we're all clear about it?
Lease versus buy. If we can have the buy-in of different groups saying, yes, I'm willing to go forward with that idea.
Lease versus buy with a storage. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Cold measure, okay.
And preschool buy-in. Those two things I think are high on the list for me, but if those answers could change those priorities, I guess that's where I'm at with making priorities right now.
Okay. All right, so
With the addition of the Early Learning Center, if we get information on that, I think that changes the priorities again, as far as classroom needs
Yes.
at the elementaries.
Right.
The facility,
Because there's a whole domino effect
Right,
that
right.
can take place, that if this isn't going to work out, then, that changes all of the rest of this. So that's I guess, why I am nervous about making a priority list.
So I'm going to clarify for the recording, before we go on with that discussion. I think our last facilities meeting, or maybe the one before that, that was the last one, we had asked for Dax to give us an estimate of what a new early learning center would cost. And that was based on Becky, our consultant, saying, have you thought about this? And made us revisit that idea. And so that number is in here. And it basically came up with a new early learning center, pre-K 400 student, kindergarten 400 student, 32 million. And in that 44 would be 44 classrooms. For the recording, there's a discussion about an existing facility that we could remodel. And we have gotten an idea that it could be under 12 million to purchase and remodel that. It's not going to be the same square footage, so I want to be clear that that's not the same square footage, but will offer still pre-K and kindergarten facility. So it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but it's under 12 million compared to 32 million, so it's a big difference. And if you add up the 6 classroom additions that we're talking about at the elementaries, to ultimately reduce the K through 3 class sizes, those add up to over 12.3 million. Again, more than the cost, and that would just get us 24 classrooms and not do anything for getting our pre-K facility moved to a permanent home out of current K through 12 space. So we're looking at less money for more classrooms. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? So that's what's kind of driving this discussion right now. So go ahead with like what you were saying when you're talking about pre-K and those options. So, to me personally, building the facility doesn't make sense to me when you can purchase and remodel for almost a third of the price. So that one to me is like way off the table. There's still a discussion about adding 6 classrooms at each elementary or doing that early learning center, because that cost isn't a huge difference. That comes down to more of a philosophical belief whether or not we fund that, because that's going to take some community support. Would the community say spend 13 million, well, let's say 12.5 million on just K through 5 space to reduce class sizes, or spend a little bit less to do that and give a house for pre-K? My expectation is it would be yes, but I'm sure there's some who, I've already heard there's some who don't agree with the pre-K program. They refer to it as a daycare. They don't understand, I guess, the learning that goes on in the pre-K. So there's some of that sentiment out there. So up to us to, I guess, determine if we think that that's something that will be supported, because we're going to need community support on it. So let's talk about that. You guys all talk to people, and sometimes we hear things that are against it. Is that, though, what we're hearing from the majority?
Those people that I've talked to about it, when I give them those 2 scenarios, less money, have preschool involved if it was an early learning center, or more money and more classroom space in the current elementaries, they've all said, oh, that's a really hard question. I'm not quite sure. And said, I have to think about that. And I said, well, yeah, if that were to go to vote, we'd want you to think about that, but couldn't give me an answer right then and there. Most of the people that I spoke with were either, that's an interesting idea, I need to think about that, or adamantly, no matter what. Those
How
are
many people
two sides.
do you think you talked to?
Specifically gave the whole proposal, probably 5.
And of that, how many said absolutely not?
One specifically said absolutely not. There was another that was like, they didn't say no, but they were closer to the no idea. And then the rest were just like, I don't know about that. I had to think more.
Has anyone else had any discussions with me about that concept? It's kind of new, this discussion, so maybe not.
I am not proposing both options.
You know, I've had some discussion with some public members about the pre-kindergarten. But like y'all know, I'm in favor of it. I like it, and that's what I try to propose. And especially another factor, if we have to go to the public, is a good selling point is what that's going to save us in the long run. Those kids being far much advanced going in, and that's why I said it's important to keep track of that data, because we're going to need that data as a board to help sell the project eventually.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, its effect on the K-12 program.
Yes, the effect of that. I think that going pre-K and K would be the best way to go right now, because that we're being fiscally responsible for the funds. I mean, we're looking at much less for the cost, to me, and we're getting twice the use out of it. Like I said, we're lowering our classroom space in our elementary schools. That's saving potentially I wouldn't say all 6 classrooms, but at least 4 to start with at each school by lowering those, which is saving that cost down the road.
One thing we haven't really talked about too is you remove the extra stress on the core space.
Yes.
that we all know that down the road, they're gonna say, hey, we have 6 new classrooms, but we didn't increase the size of the library, we didn't increase the size of the office space. But that's potentially gonna come later, and so that's more cost at that point.
Well, we've already approved to have extra portables at 3 campuses starting next year already. So that changes that cost potentially earlier than we thought, or something at least. We're already at that cost. Anyways, so that reduces that cost as well.
I do think it's important to say that even though it's needed the community support, it would be hard to say we can move kindergarten within a couple years. It's all about funding to be able to get it ready for kindergarten if we buy a facility.
Yes.
So that's important to say. Our hope is that if we can move pre-K to it soon, but kindergarten might take a few years, which would still give us that need for those portables.
Oh, right.
So we'd be able to-
That would be our deadline, for us, I
Even
think.
moving pre-K would open up the whole one wing at the junior high that we need
Yep.
desperately.
Yeah. What do you think, Mike?
I need to, whether it's for the recording or for our discussion, express my support for the pre-K program. I want to quantify how many people I've talked to. There's been several. And there has been, you said a phrase, it's being referred to as a daycare. I've had some of those discussions. But I think it's because of lack of knowledge, perhaps not visiting, seeing what goes on. There isn't, cots with kids taking naps at 1 o'clock or anything like that. For someone to call it a daycare, there's actual instruction going on. Kids are learning, like Ken just said, they're going to get to kinder, ready for kinder. Having said that, most of the feedback has been positive. They like what's going on, and this has been mostly parents that have kids in the program. I've got to be full disclosure there. But no, I would be in total support for us to continue the discussion and see it out to fruition to make this a reality in the bill.
So, I've struggled with providing facilities for pre-K on the taxpayer's dime. You guys know that, I brought it up a few times. And to me, this option takes that concern away from me. The taxpayers, in one scenario we've been seriously talking about, which is a 6 classroom addition at each elementary, would pay more money in that scenario than in this scenario. So I'm a numbers guy, and I love to save a dime. This makes complete sense to me. You're getting more for less money. So that's kind of a no-brainer, honestly, for me. When I go to this idea of the support, I want to say in my 12th year on the board, there's always been a group of people who had problems with the current administration, before and now. They don't support anything that comes from the board or administration in those situations. It's always been that way, and we have to take that with a grain of salt. It doesn't matter what the idea is. It's going to be said, I don't like that idea because it came from this current board or administration. And so I think about the comments that I've heard going against. And I've identified people who I know are against the board. So there's me personally, the board as a whole, the administration, and those are the ones who don't like preschool. That's the only negatives I've heard about it. I have heard concerns from the community about the financing part of it, and I get that concerns myself. But I think, and I haven't yet, but I'm going to go back to those people and I'm going to say, here's a scenario, and I'll find out if they say, well, okay, yeah, I can do that. That makes sense. Or still maybe, no, I'm still against it, and I will go talk to those individuals. But I've got, for the most part, positive comments too, but it usually is from people who are being positively affected by pre-K right now. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about the high school, because we just got some information about high school reality and needs. Before, I think we had identified as a board that 9 classroom addition was one of the priorities, right? Are we still there?
It's still there. Looking at the numbers that were there today too, we've got 2 years.
Three.
Three.
I think 3.
And it's not like we can just suddenly say, oh, let's just change this space into 4 extra classrooms. Everything in building takes time, and more time than you think it's gonna take. And so I do think that we shouldn't just be, with those numbers, okay, yeah, we have a bit of a cushion of time, but we need to have a specific action plan and start something within a year, 18 months, or even less. Because it's not gonna be done in time for that 3 years out thing.
Right. So, you mentioned the 4 classrooms, so to clarify, I think that was something that came out of our executive session discussion. The potential for a space for the cold and dry storage, the lease space. There was discussion in that about that space accommodating technology maybe, and then technology would be able to move from the current high school campus, and that building could become classroom space. So that's what you're alluding to, right, Jen?
Yes.
If we added 4 classrooms, and let's say it took us for 3 years to build those out, it looked to me, based on those numbers, that 4 classrooms could buy us another year or 2, looking at the projected growth.
Yeah.
What if, in a nice scenario, I'm talking about it, I put in there a 6-year capital levy. What if it got us through those 6 years from now, and then the bond that I think we've all agreed to build the high school out where it needs to be, took care of then the classroom needs. That would be ideal, right?
Right, but the problem is we'd be taking students out of some of those classrooms or affecting some of that space, so we have to have I think we still have to bring in portables in the middle of all of that construction phase we can't just build, there's not space to build there right now, so we'd still have to accommodate, if we started earlier and had the 4 classrooms, I think we still have to have portables as a temporary fix during the construction phase.
Let's possibly.
There's no way around that.
Yeah.
We don't have space to put extra buildings in right now, even in phases. We have to take out current portables, we have to take out 600 wing, we have to take out 200. There's all kinds of different spaces that we'd have to affect immediately and put those in portables for a temporary fix during the construction phase. We had to do it at every single elementary when we do
The only
that.
other option is spacing off the gyms. You don't want to do that at the high school.
That's even
You
scarier.
have to do it at the junior high for classrooms.
None of that is ideal, but
Right.
they're amazing in construction about how to phase in the existing facilities. So that part's out of my realm of expertise for sure, but they figure out how to make that work. One of the things I'd like to talk about again, and I know there's people that are not a fan of this, but kind of moving on to the new and lieu part of this, if you were to new and lieu that space, they told us we can use that for district space as long as it's not classrooms. And one of the things that was mentioned in the presentation earlier was there's 8 to 10 prep periods at any given moment at high school, right? If we made that space office space for teachers, so they would have to leave their classroom to allow that to be a teaching space for a temporary, that'd be a temporary situation, right? That gains us 8 to 10 more classrooms, which buys us a little more time too, and that could be a discussion in that whole phasing part of it. The reason I'm bringing that up is because if we go 6 years of a capital levy, which I proposed there, the least cost to the taxpayers, if we can make things work in that 6 years before a bond after that, and not have to even purchase portables or build things early. And I want to open up the Mark Pressing attachment about facilities funding, so I can talk a little bit.
Which one's that called? Facilities funding?
Facilities funding.
Okay.
So this was just based on a request I made to Mark. I just said, just so we have something, an idea to go off of, I said, could you throw in there if it was, I came up with a total based off of putting Dax's numbers into a spreadsheet of all the projects that we've prioritized, including the high school that was part of the last bond. And I didn't change any of the scope of that, and I know that the reality is something's gonna be changed on that, but just to make it easy right now, I said, what that scope was, add some dollars for escalation and cost, because that was a couple years ago, and then I came up with a total of $39 million district share for our construction. So there's no net construction, some of it's going to be state matchable. Of that 49 that I just asked Mark Preston to do, what would it look like if we did a $15 million capital levy passed in 2019? So this is pretty aggressive, right? We pass it end of the year if we were able to pass it. We'd start collecting taxes then in the beginning of 2020. We do that for 6 years with the hope of passing a bond for $36 million in 2025 that would then do that big high school remodel project. So that $15 million would be to some of these smaller projects that we've identified. What gets paid first doesn't really matter in this scenario. We can decide that later. It's more about what the money would look like and what it would do from a taxpayer perspective as far as how much per thousand. So if you scroll down to page 5 on that, you'll see then what would that tax rates be. 2018, $4.22 is worth total for O&M levy and the current bond. This year it dropped because of the state levy kicking in and the M&O dropping down to $1.50. In this scenario, if we pass something this year, then what it would do is it would raise the overall taxes compared to last year. I don't want to compare this year because this is kind of an anomaly year where the state basically said you can only collect this much from your local levy. Taxpayers are still paying that, they're just paying it to the state now. So if you look at the 422, it's going to increase $1.20 for the local taxes in that scenario of a $15 million M&O levy. I was talking about this earlier. For every $1 million you change that capital levy. For every $1 million you change the capital levy, up or down, it's going to change it 14 cents per thousand. So if you look at that and say, $5.41, we feel is too much for our community, then we would just reduce that capital levy ask enough to move that money to where we think would be a good amount. For every million we reduce the capital levy, we're going to then increase that bond later. That makes sense? So we'll increase the later $2.85 accordingly. We have formulas for the bond that are a little harder to go by, but we did get confirmation, I think Dr. Hurst, that the capital levy was an easy one because there's no interest involved. Here's what you have for assessed value divided by this many $1 million, and you pay for it in 6 years. Or you collect it in 6 years, I should say, on a levy. So based on that, you understand kind of what I was shooting for there. So the $15 million is just a number I threw out there. It really is up to if the board says, here's some things we really want to accomplish in 6 years. Then you add it up, and you say, what's the total? And then you subtract money that we feel we can take from our reserve. And that's what you're left with for your capital levy. So that's a number that's not decided by the board and can be decided in any way.
The capital levy would also have to be based off because we don't collect that money at one time like we do a bond. We collect it over a 5-year period. So it's what we could phase in over the
Exactly.
5-6 year period. Yeah.
So we know we have some cash at first to start some projects, but what you don't want to get to is where you go, we ran out of money.
Yeah.
And we haven't collected enough from our levy, so it'd be an interesting phasing. And so some of our prioritization might be from a construction manager saying, okay, based on what the needs are for this, I don't think that's the best project to start because you're going to run out of money. So we'll need some counseling in that.
And then we go back to your scenario, everything is connected and it's kind of like a
Dominoes,
effect.
right.
So the question, I guess, for the board is the support or not with the start projects as soon as possible with current reserve money, then move into a capital levy, then a capital bond. Is the board in favor of that scenario, regardless of dollar amounts right now?
Yes.
I'm in favor of it because we could start some work right away that's very much needed.
Well, this is all based on, we believe that the work needs to be done, this is just a matter of what you finance it, right? Mike?
I'm for it, because I think I think this would be the quickest way to get dirt moving. And I think our community is asking for, you guys got all these plans, you've got all these meetings, but we don't see nothing. And I think this would be the quickest way to get dirt moving.
So, I don't want to leave this out because he put it in here purposely for us to kind of look at another option. He threw in there a $20 million bond instead of a $15 million capital levy, and what that would look like from a taxpayer perspective. And you can see it reduces the cost per thousand, but then it extends that out, keep in mind, for 20 years, 27 years, because 26 years, because you're first going to have a bond, and then 6 years later, another 20-year bond. And so it's a matter of, do I want to spend a little bit more money now, and then really have it drop off for 20 years? Or do I want to spend this much for 26 years? What do we think our community is
I
for?
would say though, at that 20 million bond right now, that might tie our hands for later when we might need that.
I'm guessing he did this based on us having the capacity. I don't think he would have done it without knowing we had the capacity going down the road. So, I'm not positive on that though, Ken, but he understands that enough, I think he did. I mean, for me, here's one of the benefits of the capital levy that we've talked about before, but I want to remind the board, 50% pass rate for capital levy, 60% for a bond. The community might look at a capital levy and see, hey, these guys they're doing some work here, and that might gain more support for future facilities for a bond. It might not. It might hurt it. I mean, it depends on where the community's at with things, but it's up to us to make sure we educate people on what we're trying to do and get support. Yeah, this is I think it's a good idea, right?
After the capital facilities, the rates per thousand drop down quite a bit, even with the bond, so.
If we did a scenario of the 15 million and then 36, we would not have had that low of tax rate, 285, since 2007. If we went the other scenario with two bonds, essentially we'd be kind of at the same amount, just over $4 that we have been for already 12 years.
But that's also assuming that the state doesn't change anything, that they don't remodify M&O levy. I mean, I don't think 5 years ago people would have seen that the state was going to cap M&O levy and that they were then going to take some percentages. I mean, the state, to look out 5 years in the future for what the state's going to do and what sometimes those numbers are, it's always a gamble.
It's a gamble every 10 years.
Yes, that's true, right. So
that's why I'm going to throw out the two bonds, is that you get the money up front. You don't have to worry about that phasing and where we run out of money in the project. So that's another thing where with the capital levy, you do have to wait till the money comes in and then build. So this might be also, our decision on this might be driven a little bit by if the construction management says, I don't think you can do it with capital levy and phase it, then it might change our discussion.
right. But at the same time, sometimes it's about getting the good relationship with the right contractor that we don't sign a contract with them for every single one, like the next 5 years worth. It's just, we're working off of this good relationship and we keep going forward with the same.
Well, the problem with that is,
So good with us.
I think the lowest bid, it doesn't matter if they have a good relationship with them or not.
But they're already here, and that makes it less expensive potentially than someone new coming in.
It's a true story. It's all, that's the,
They already have a project manager here, they already have their, their workers and all of that's already set up. Potentially, it could be a lower cost. Potentially, somebody else could mess that up. Right, definitely.
Okay. So, what are our next steps that we need to do? I know prioritization is one, but I don't think we have to prioritize the construction to start moving forward on this concept. Would you guys agree? Or do we need to get that prioritization before we can even move forward with any concept of how? I think we need to start talking about this, and we need to talk to the public more, and so that way we get feedback from the public about the ideas. If we just wait and don't talk about it 3 months ago.
That's true.
Because November's gonna be here quick. If we decide that that's the time to do a potential capital levy.
Well, and it says August 6th is the deadline, according to this document. So, so we need to talk both about an early learning center concept, the costs, what people agree or disagree with, and capital levy followed by a capital bond to see if people are on board with those ideas, is what you're saying.
And then people are gonna wanna know, what's a capital levy gonna pay for? That's gonna take us prioritizing.
Roughly, we're going to have $2.5 million a year, 215. So what can we do each year with that?
And
I need to show.
I jotted down some ideas, but it's, some things changed in my ideas today after hearing that, I'm gonna say the high school, 9 classrooms, became less urgent to me. Still a priority, but less urgent than it was yesterday. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. So with that, then, it could shift some of the other needs in that urgency.
I'd say I'm totally against portables. I don't like portables, don't like to sit on them. But in this case, at the high school, we may need them I know we're not going to have construction going in the next 2 years at the high school, unless something drastically happens for that amount that we need. But we're going to need those portables too for transition during construction. And I think that's where the bond's going to pay off for the high school construction, and those portables will be in place. So, like I said, that does lower the priority for the 9 classrooms for me at the high school, because we can take care of that for a while.
Okay. Any other board comments on this? Just kind of want some direction on where we need to go from here. I understand we need to get more information about prioritizing the facility construction. What comes first, what comes second? Anything else you want to talk about with this? Financing options. And maybe a deadline of when we need to come up with some real numbers of what we would want to consider for that capital levy.
We haven't talked about, I think, the grant that's out there that Jamie said might expire soon. Is that all considered in your funding proposal?
Yeah, so, talking, my hope, and I don't know if we can, but I think we can, would be, if we were able to purchase this facility that could become an early learning center and get reimbursed, at least part of the price of the purchase from the grant. That, in this scenario in my mind, that's what I was hoping for. But that would be so we'd be able to potentially use that right away and get reimbursed. I don't know how long it takes to get reimbursed on
Yeah,
that.
we'd have to show a really good plan how that's going to reduce class size in the elementaries.
And then the question I think Jen brought up earlier was, how soon do you have to show it's going to reduce the class sizes? Can you say, here's our plan, but it's going to be 2 years before you actually see it? Or will they say, oh no, you have to show it's going to reduce it right away? We don't know yet.
That's a few questions I think we're going to have with the administrators of that grant program.
Yeah, I think Dr. Hurst,
That's another huge question that we need to know, like at what point and those kinds of things. Part of that domino effect.
And if not, then are we willing to put the money up in the beginning to start this with what we have in our...
Well, and Mike and I went to a training that I shared a little bit with Rob and Chris about. The USDA does loans and grants for preschools all the time. So we could potentially, let's say the 2.2 isn't on the table until the whole thing is done and they're classroom ready, walk-in ready, I guess I should say. You know, so maybe we could do USDA grant/loans, because there's often combo versions, to purchase it so that there's not this huge upfront cost, or start some of the remodels or something. That's a possibility as well.
So this has been discussed in the past, so I feel comfortable bringing it up. I'm not trying to commit Dr. Hurst to any changing configuration right now, but he even has brought up the idea of the current McFarland facility being a K through 8 dual language facility. If that was something he still wants to do, I don't see why one of the things we can explain is that by moving preschool out of that and into another place, we've just freed up space to move dual language to there, which that could show class size reduction potentially in that K through 3 in some way. I don't know. I think there's ways we can do it, and I think what the state wants to do is just support the idea of class size reduction. If we can show them we have a plan, hopefully they'll see that there's importance in that, and we can
I'll say
reverse
that's
it.
exactly the plan that we're working on to present to the board, because you just articulated the plan.
Yeah, and they might say, well, right now we don't even recognize your preschool being in that space as affecting K through 1 class size because there's no, or K through 3 because there's no K through 3 in it, so moving that out isn't going to change it. They might say that. But if it creates an ability to move another school into it, then they might say that. I see how that's going to be used. We can find out.
And kindergarten is part of that plan as well, that we're presenting. So moving that kindergarten over there, so that will help.
Yeah. Okay. So, is this something we want to discuss, just plan on discussing at every regular board meeting for a while? At least talking, getting updates from Dr. Hurst on the kind of questions we have.
So having like a mini facility discussion at every single one and having that just ongoing on our board discussions.
In the regular board meeting, even, I would suggest.
That's what I was
Not
saying.
trying to make it a large discussion, but, okay, what have you learned that you can share with us? Does that change any of our prioritization? Is the board agreeable to that?
Yeah.
I think the discussions need to happen frequently, so the public can hear our ideas. All right, then we'll just make sure to have it on the agenda,
Awesome.
starting next board meeting even.
Okay.
We'll have some answers by next Monday?
Yeah, I'm already texting people right now, so.
Not next Monday, the Monday after.
Monday after that.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we have a break before we go to the next?
We're just going to say, let's take a recess for 5 minutes, and we will reconvene for our next agenda item. Okay, so we'll continue some of our own discussions. I guess, actually, I want to wrap it up, let the board continue to talk more about any of these things. I just want to clarify for the recording, the Wahidas Elementary master budget. I asked for that document just so the board could look at previous construction costs compared to construction costs now. It was really just informational. And now we have it in board docs to all reference in the future if we ever want to go back to it. Also, the final Othello's master bond budget, we talked about every one of these items except for the gym. Now the gym is based on if we also had changing rooms. So that whole price is for 3 gyms that includes changing rooms. So that price could be changed based on what we want to include in that in the end.
Who does some dry storage included in your gym?
Not in this one, I don't think. Let me make sure. I asked Max to take that out. I really wanted to simplify the gym only. And that was based off my comment I made to the board about if we moved PE storage and PE teacher office into there, wouldn't that free up space in our current existing, and that could become dry storage at least. And so that was, I know there's don't solve our cold storage issues. I want to clarify that. So, are we good to move on then to the next agenda item, or is there more for that discussion? We're good. We're getting to, there's the knots. Linkage committee recommendations is the next one. So, this is the results of last year's prioritization, where we came up with our priorities at the bottom. Of that, we had met with CBHA, we went to a PAC meeting. We met with McCain's. We met with the ministerial, who was the only one then for those top 5 we have not met with is Simplot. Well, the plan is when that's our next meeting, and no one's got back to Jen yet, but I have a phone call to someone to try to find out who the contact person is in there. So that's still...
Unless someone else has a contact that I could contact to say, Who do I need to contact?
I actually talked to Leroy over at the Canes.
Right, and he
Because
forwarded
they
me an
were-
email,
Okay.
and I saw it was forwarded to both him and me, and he linked a couple people in. I've not gotten anything back from
Okay.
Simplot since Leroy at McCain's forwarded that information. Never even like a, hey, thanks for the info. Nothing. Like, that they didn't even receive it. So that's why I'm asking for, I can't even, so there was one time that I called Simplot to say, who's your point person, or who do I talk to about any of this kind of stuff? And they said, you need to tell me the name of who you want to talk to. And I said, whoever takes care of this department. And I think I said like community outreach or something, and they said, I can't put you through to anyone. You have to give me a person's name. And I said, well, who runs that? You have to give me a person, so they won't even forward me. I don't know if it's a switchboard in a different state or what. So I don't even know who to ask for to say, can we have a meeting?
Do you know Katie Hayduck?
I know the last name.
She basically works in the front office down below the reception.
So ask for her?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's still our plan for the 13th, is that meeting. We don't have to, it's not like we have to prepare a bunch of things to have a meeting, we just have to make sure that they're aware, they show up. But our discussion is for this coming year, and so our reasoning for doing this linkage is to help us look at our policies and say, maybe we could tweak our policies based on information we're getting from these groups, right? We ultimately want to help us determine policy. Personally, I think we've gotten good information from these that probably have been helped maybe Dr. Hurst think about some operational things he does, but I don't know that I have gotten any information that has made me say, oh, I think I want to change this policy as a result of information I'm getting. And so what I'm asking as a board is, are we seeing more value in the type of meeting we're having, or would we like to maybe change up how we do linkage for this coming year?
I thought McCain's was probably one of the most interesting and learning what they're doing.
I think CBHA also,
Yeah.
you know, because they're huge employers of students and future employers.
I'm getting value from all of them. I don't know if it made me so, there's some policy changes I would make. I would ask Dr. Earl and ask, has it made you make some procedural changes? Or
Absolutely. So I'm always gathering information, doing those meetings, and I'm always contacting and connecting with someone doing those meetings as well. So I've already reached out to Amy Paris, and I asked her a question about her process and global competency, because that's really her piece of work. And skills really fits into that piece that she's doing. So my question to her, we're focusing on these skills, what other skills do we have to focus on or include in our vision as well? But then also, especially CBHA, when they were talking about our students not coming prepared for interviews, because that's a big part of her work as well. So my question to her was, what are we doing to make sure that our students are up to speed, that they're arriving on time, because that's something that we heard also, or they're arriving late to interviews. So I'm having immediate conversations to change based on those two, at least, conversations that I have.
So Jen and I were talking about this the other day, and one of the things that I wanted to throw out there and see what the board thinks about it. Ken mentioned a little bit, I think, in last year, a little bit this in a way. I think these meetings are beneficial. I think they've probably been more beneficial from a procedural standpoint, like I said. But maybe what we could do is switch it up and go to them now. So it's a little difficult to get people to come to us, we found that out. But go to them and maybe not make it boards of forum. Maybe we team up in twos and we calendar, Ken and Tyson are going to go visit this entity on this date, and maybe go back to the board on what they want from that. And we do pairs of doing that, and I don't know, maybe it might be easier to meet with them because we go to their place. What's the board think about that?
No, I think that would be great.
Good idea.
Because it's us getting out. It's us making the effort to go out to them. I got one right now I'd love you guys to come and sit in with, and that's, you know, I chair the Washington State Skill Source Workforce Development Board. It's a 5-county regional: Okanagan, Chelan, Douglas, Grant, and Adams. We meet in, the Grant and Adams meets once every 3 months. But some of these same issues that we've heard from the employers are some of the same issues that we're trying to deal with too, on further education. And there are people, we've got the head of Big Bend Community Colleges on it. We've got a lot of members from North Central on it. And it would be just nice to have a couple members come to our meeting, because we are dealing with a lot of educational issues too, on training and what employers want in the long run.
So when we set up a meeting, do we do 2 board members and Chris, 2 board members and someone from the executive team, depending upon who, and what? Because,
But it would be up to Chris to decide who he would like to send with us, whether it's himself or anyone else.
Right.
But I think having someone, because you're going to get operational ideas from that. That's fine. That's not nothing for us.
I mean, all the questions that come up is centered around bulletin boards or job skills or something like that. So
But I think that's a great idea. Otherwise, we're going to be bringing back to a board meeting what was said, and then it's not from the horse's mouth. Right. It's secondhand. So the question would be then, how many contacts do we want to prioritize for this coming year? And then we can talk about then what that will mean. I'll just say that we had 5 this last year. And all 5 of us had those 5 contacts. How many contacts do we want to do?
Had 4.
Well,
Sorry, so far.
5 or more we're going to do. Not sure. So what do we want to do for, do we like the 5-minute number, or do we want to increase that number going forward, or?
Well, if we break out 2 each, we could probably cover a couple more.
If we did 2
We
each,
don't wanna-
it would be 10 contacts, right? Yeah. Well, no, there'd be 2 of us at each.
2 at each one.
So 2 each would be 5. If we just said we each want to do 3. Am I looking at that right? Am I doing the math right on that?
If we did 3 and we rotated around, 3 each, and we rotated around, that's like,
No matter what, I think we're gonna have one more meeting, and then, which is fine to me.
If we said 3 contacts, that's actually less contacts that an individual board member would have to make, but it would be more overall.
yeah.
And then it's just a matter of what a location of who goes with who. Sure. Well, okay, let's throw this out there. If we did 4 contacts, each board member would have 1 board member they go with, it's rotated through.
Yeah.
I think that would be 10 contacts for the year. So essentially once a month. Not every board member once a month, but there would be a contact once a month.
So what do we do with this list? Do we use this list, the next top 10?
The next question would be that, or would you leave it up to those 2 board members to say, we calendar that they're going to have a meeting, they decide, here's who we want to meet with, and they do a proposal to the board the month before, and say, we're meeting next month with somebody, here's who we're likely to be, here's our reasoning behind it, and then probably the board is always going to say, yeah, sounds good. Is it anything right now on the calendar, the times that it's done?
Right. So we put 1 in every month though.
Yeah, so if we just said, no meetings June and July, or well, let's pick which month we don't want to meet. It's the hardest month to meet, let's say that right now. Maybe 2 months that we don't have a meeting. You guys think best ones?
June and July probably are the best, I think, to not meet. Meet August through May.
Does the board have any, is there any months, they're just hard months to, we have a lot going on? I would throw out, November tends to be pretty busy for us just because we have Wednesday and Thanksgiving. But it all depends on what day of the month we meet too. It's on a Monday. I don't know if June or July, I don't think any month is better or worse for me.
Well, and a lot of these groups, I mean, like, food board, you're not gonna, it's not gonna be an evening meeting, it's gonna be, who can go to this lunch meeting and this is the time that they have it. You know, a lot of these things are gonna be their set times, but we have to accommodate them.
And not everyone has to do all 10 months, keep that in mind. You might say, well, November's not good for me, so we're just gonna do on November. So we'll give it June and July just being the 2 months we don't schedule out. So we're gonna start our next linkage meetings then in August. And is there a day that we wanna say, or do we wanna just say August to be determined?
To be determined, because it's the group and when they're...
Okay.
Another question that maybe I've got here too, after doing this for a year, is there any other groups that we would like to add to this list, or maybe that...
That's what I'm saying, is rather than go off this list, those two come together beforehand and say, let's just try to say a month before, those two who are coming up know, here's who we're gonna meet with. And if we're not on the board and got the board consensus, like, yeah, that's a good group to meet with. They might be on here, they might not, that's okay.
Right. So then if you're putting in the calendar to be determined, you also need to add which two people in theory are that month. So that there's an assignment, and then, yes, things could be rotated around, oh, that's not gonna work for me, let's change it to, these two people are changing months or something like that, but you know what I mean.
That's what you're saying. So, is there any month right now somebody says, this is a bad month for me?
March.
Okay, so March for Jen is a bad month.
November, actually.
November for Mike. Anyone else where one month is particularly worse?
Not worse. No, it's close enough out that I can schedule around it pretty easily.
So if we could then modify the calendar, I don't even think, maybe TBD isn't a good way to do it, because then it'll force us to put a date on it when we figure it out. What if we just said, this month, November, these two people will be meeting for linkage. And we don't have to say a date necessarily. And once that linkage meeting is completed, the next board meeting, they'll report to the board. Okay. So then all you have to do is just rotate, so everyone's rotating through people, but Jen know in March, and Mike know in November.
August would probably be mine.
Tyson know in August. Awesome. Other quick discussion. Like that, it'd be interesting to find out how we go this year.
Well, and just having really sat in on the McCain's one, you're gonna keep, I don't know what type of, like McCain's, they came prepared with information. Is that always is that how we open that up, or is it more like if we're going to visit them at their...
So let's say going to visit the Chamber of Commerce board.
Right.
You'd have to, say, when is your next board meeting, when can we meet? They're gonna give us the amount of time. And so we kind of just said, what are issues that you see? How can we affect and help? And then depending upon who we're going to, who the district sends, who Chris decides. And so they'll typically say, you get this amount of time, or something along those lines. Some groups will set up a meeting, like going to SBZ. I'm assuming they say, let's set like a 30-minute or hour meeting in my office for just in case, or whatever. Some of them might set up like the whole, every group, everything is going to be completely different according to who you're meeting with and who you're proposing, I think.
So we've
always just kind of made it open, like with the ministerial group, it was like we really got going like 45 minutes in. There was 4 or 5 of them, and they kind of said, this is really something you'd almost need to talk to our congregation, not really us about, like, well, what about this, and what about this, and and so that was, it was a very different format going from CDHA to them.
This year we try to keep it informal. I think the important thing was first to explain, really brief summary of policy governance. And so the board, we deal with policy. But we we want to see like maybe common themes of what maybe our students are missing from helping them be as successful as they can at the next step, right? The next step in their lives. And we get that feedback. There's always going to be operational issues that are brought up. That's just natural, which is why it's nice to have someone from the district office there to glean off that stuff. But for us, we really should be focused on, okay, is this, we have a policy, maybe there's contradictory what we're hearing with what people want from our students. Maybe we need to think about the policy. It's always beneficial. Whether or not we result in a policy change, just depends. So we've tried to keep it informal to say, show us, how are we doing with getting our students prepared in your mind with, so we want to see people who deal with students right out of high school, I think, in my mind, that's what we want to see.
Right, not always even that. I think even like, what is your perception of the district? What is your perception of what we do as a board? I know all that.
Right, and that's kind of where I was coming from, just looking at this list. I mean, there are the major employers of a fellow, but then there's also the Lutheran quilting ladies, you know, which...
Let's explain that we got the list. There's a committee.
Okay.
We form a committee to then say, find out who would like to meet with them. And that's where I came from.
Well, and so, what I'm getting at is, my conversation with CBHA and McCain Simplot is going to be completely different between that and the quilting or the, you know, the EBAs club and, you know, those types. So I was just curious what the formats are, and obviously it's going to change for each one, but just, are we presenting something to them? Are we just asking for feedback, or, you know, what are some issues that we can help you with, type of thing?
All that.
We used to present them. That was the first year we did linkage. We decided that seemed more like we were talking to them rather than really listening to them. So then this last year we made it informal. We have ability to change that, so when you bring it up, do we want to keep it informal and allow them to kind of think, like, first let them know what we do, but then let them determine where the conversation goes, or do we want to, or that's something, that's up to us, right? But maybe it's up to us in each individual circumstance. Maybe there'll be something that you want to share with a certain group. That's okay too. I think we need to keep a focus on policy. As always, that's part of our job, right? I want to read specifically information about linking so that it helps us.
Kevin Gilbert was the third member of that helped put together that committee. So it was
I'll come back to not finding a specific line in policy that I'm looking for. I don't want to just sit here and look for. So we'll talk about that later. But it sounds like we have our concept of how we want to go forward with Lincoln. Do you want to discuss that anymore, or do you want to be clear on that?
Yeah, I just got something I just kind of want to throw in there too, with the linkage, that if we decide to go to a capital facilities bond levy, that maybe we throw some more in there, depending on the timing of that.
Absolutely.
It's in 2 numbers.
I would say that August, September, October linkage for sure should have a heavy focus on that.
Yes.
Good point. If we decide to do that.
Yeah.
November, we haven't obviously decided that yet. I think it's always good if there's an issue with time to present on that, and that might be all your questions about that. That's okay. That's good linkage still. Okay. Anything else? All right. So now on to the assurance of organizational performance. I've got 3.5 hours for this. If we don't use it, that's fine, but it's there for us. We're going to start with reviewing the superintendent evaluation surveys. To give a little background on how we've done this in the past, we look at the current survey results. We compare them. You see, it's under admin content, not to keep it from the public, but to, it's in our last year's, so it's an admin was in last year's. And so anyone can look at it, but it helps us keep it separate. We're focusing on the 2018 and 19 survey, but we have the 17, 18, so we can do a comparison. How do we do this year compared to last year? All right, and that's for both the superintendent and for us. In the admin content, you'll see the yearly average comparison, and then we'll also have comments in executive content. We're going to go over those in executive session right after this first item D1. Okay. So to start with, we're just going to look at the overalls. Well, first I said the board had a chance to look at the results, overall results.
I haven't.
Not the overall.
Okay, so we're going to go through
Individually on some of them.
We're going to go through one at a time then. We'll talk about the results, and then I will talk about the comparison to last year. Okay? All right, so first question on, we're going to go superintendent survey from staff. Are we all there? My superintendent puts the needs of our students above all else. 39% said almost always, 32% said usually, 24% said sometimes, and 5% said rarely. Weighted average, 3.05. So we want that number. I think the perfect is 4. So the higher that number, the better. That's the way we try to design these. We found out we were somewhere more differently last year, so they come out that way, but hopefully we don't have any more of those.
Can I just interrupt you for a minute? The number of surveys, really quick, this year compared to last year.
Oh, yes, we can find that out right now.
I see we got 206 for this year.
Yep, last year, you can open it up, there's 267. So it's considerable participation this year in all than last year, or maybe board from community might have been close.
So
Which is still such a small number, it's almost invalid.
Okay.
So we had 207 this year, and last year we had 268.
Because they can skip once, so.
Okay, thank you.
And how many staff do we have?
I believe that number was like 500 and some. I can look for it.
556.
Approximately under 40% participation.
Okay.
Not great, but I don't know if we can expect more than that for average. Okay, so the weighted average was 3.05. Last year was 3.31. So that dropped. Now, I will say the precursor to all this, I think the feeling was the survey, the evaluations from staff dropped for both board and superintendent overall on the weighted average.
We have this percentage this year.
36%.
Yes. 36% responded. Of staff.
Okay. And I sent, I got a copy of the board on the 2 that I had sent, 2 emails that I had sent encouraging the staff to answer, so.
That
All right.
seems, I mean,
Is that too low?
that
Is that
seems
what
a
you
little low.
said? So last year we thought it was like 50% basically?
So it was 268.
Last year was only about 50%, was the best year ever, by the way. I think this year is even better than the year before last. I'm not positive on that one, or I don't
So
have.
everyone has an opportunity, you saw Rob's emails, I think that was, so I think there was 3 emails that went out to all staff. There were some sections in reading the comments that it was obvious that I thought, I don't think we've ever seen comments that you could specifically relate back to. I mean, you can always go, this is a teacher, this is someone from PSE, those kinds of things, that's often something. But there were some groups that I was like, I've never seen this group make comments, and that I can specifically relate it back to them. So that was really interesting to see some of that stuff.
To clarify, we never identified individual people. Right?
That's right.
So based on what they said in their comment, you could say, okay, they are someone who works for dining, something like that. Yeah, you can see, you kind of got it based on their comment is all. I want to be very clear, because that question question came up a couple times, if it's anonymous. And one person specifically emailed me, and my answer was, the board has no desire to identify individual people's responses. We're looking for overall trends that we can look at and say, how can we improve next year? That was my response to that. So,
And I think we've heard people say, oh, I don't trust that, they're going to trace it back to who it is. But we don't really care who the individual is. We just want to know the perceptions, and some of the comments is easy to relate back to a specific area, but and just go, they're not happy, we need to do something.
And I've had a lot of conversations with staff, and encouraging them to do this. And some of the comment and feedback I got was, I don't trust. That's what I heard, I don't trust. And I don't want to make a comment and have it come back on me. Well, that's when I went and approached Rob and talked to him about maybe getting a letter out too, to let them know that it is anonymous. And we weren't looking for those. We needed a good comparison to compare this.
Well, and that's why you really up. I mean, 30%, that's low. I mean, that's...
So I think a good question, I remember we asked this before we started talking about this last year. What do we feel as a board is a higher percentage to make the results valid for us? Every comment we read, we can look at and say, well, how can we do better? Right. But to really say, this is part of a superintendent's evaluation. It's important to know, do we have enough to make it valid for us to consider it for an evaluation of our superintendent? I think that's important for a question to ask. And so what is that for the board? What do we think?
Well, and I mean, you go to buy something online and you look at the reviews, there's always those that love it and hate it. And it seems like everybody else in the middle is, I mean, you can assume that it's good. If they hated it, they're going to let you know. If they loved it, but otherwise everybody else is just, so is that, I kind of make those assumptions when I see 36%, okay, they're either going to love it or hate it, but then everybody else is okay with performance.
What's the other 64%?
Yeah, so, where does that fall?
I heard that explanation before, and I think that, I agree with that. I think that those 64% probably are okay. I'm okay with how things are going. I don't feel strongly one way or the other to even fill this out. Would you guys agree with that?
I just wanted to make sure that I'm not just...
Generally, we have to assume that because they didn't fill out the survey in some cases.
And I heard those that said it was filling out for the
Right.
purpose of, I don't want my feelings to be
How many people
hurt.
we got, what do you think?
Personally, probably 11, 12 that I've talked to
They don't trust.
that don't.
They don't fill out because they don't
That's
trust.
the ones, and then I've had quite a few that end up filling it out.
I heard from three that were, well, two of them was because of something that happened in the 90s. There's something that was, some survey that was done where apparently it was not kept confidential or they weren't anonymous. And so I don't know how you combat that. They might be the only people that are still in the district from that time. So I don't know. I don't think you can combat that. There's going to be that sentiment. So the question's still on the table of, do we want to say 36% of staff? Is that enough to really make any definitive conversation with Chris, say, hey, you really need to work on this if it's lower?
I don't know that it'll be, that this is going to be a specific conversation, but it's part of the overall conversation.
It is. I agree with that.
I guess in the end, we can determine if we think it's important enough to put in his evaluation.
Right.
Or not important enough, should I say significant enough, in if there's a big drop. Okay, so this one, this last one was 3.05, and last year it was 3.31, so there was a drop in that. We want to talk about that anymore. No? Okay. Now we've got question 2. My superintendent ensures that all staff are treated with respect and dignity. We go back. Of this, usually and almost always, in my mind, are positive responses. Whereas 80% felt that he usually or almost always put the needs of students above all else. Okay? My superintendent ensures that all staff are treated with respect and dignity. 73% found that usually or almost always superintendent did that, and it was 3.09. Last year, 3.20. Stop me if you want to discuss anything more. I'm just going to go through the results otherwise. Question 3, my superintendent empowered me to achieve the district vision. 63% said almost, usually or almost. 2.83 was the weighted average. Last year was 3.23. That was the biggest drop so far. Unfortunately, sometimes you can see from the comments that they commented on a specific question, but you don't necessarily know if they're how they felt about that and how many. You have to have comments for every
So
section.
can we pull up last year's number compared to this year's responses? I just want to see if there was a specific one that changed in powers or.
So last year, 79% said usually or almost always. And this year, 63. Big drop. Rarely went from 7.5 to 17.5. Sometimes went from 13 to 19.5. So I guess, what do you think you could do to empower the staff more to achieve the vision?
Well, I have a question maybe for the board first, just because I've been kind of thinking about this and reflecting. One, I think just considering how much we receive information from district staff, so as I think about how I evaluate, I'm evaluating principals probably every 2 weeks or having conversations or getting feedback. I think if you look at one specific moment in time, it depends on what's happening in that moment of time, according to what people are going to say.
Sure.
If you ask me whether I'm empowering people to achieve the instructional vision, that's my whole work. So I'm meeting with principals, sharing that, I'm sharing with teachers. Been to individual meetings with district staff, so I've done that. But I know that there has been some issues this year, specifically at one particular school, MMS, not a secret, where there is certainly a school of thought around the district maybe overstepping the boundaries and kind of being authoritative, kind of dictating this is what should happen at this particular school site. I'm not saying that these comments came from them, but I would just say, looking at everything that has happened this year, I would say that I've done the job of empowering people, but I do think that there's individuals at a particular school site, or maybe at some other school sites, that feel a certain way about the district office. And then also considering, I think if you was to take this at the beginning of the year, so after I have done these presentations to the staff, or after I've had the school-wide meetings, there would be a totally different response. So for me, I would like to kind of suggest more opportunities for the board to solicit feedback throughout the year instead of one. I'll say maybe 4. So for me, we have a commitment that we are sitting with principals once a month at least and getting feedback from other sources. So I'm not just saying, okay, at the end of the year, this is your kind of final evaluation. I can put everything together and say, okay, now I got a bigger picture. And I know other things play into that, like individual conversations that I have with staff members play into that piece as well. So just kind of getting back to,
I like that idea of like quarterly evaluations, maybe not 10 questions for staff quarterly. Maybe if we came up with like 4 essential ones and then maybe an end of year 10 kind of an idea. I don't think that that's a bad idea because then we can gauge things throughout the year and then just look at again, putting the specific comments into executive content. But, you know, we're not doing an evaluation once a quarter. So we just need to go and gauge things, and then when we do this at the end of the year, it's just in documents. And then at the end of the year, that's when we pull the different ones up, because there might be a time of year that people are less happy. Testing season is extremely stressful for everyone, and that's a really interesting idea.
I was sitting here thinking the exact same thing, like you mentioned, depending on what time of year. But you gotta remember, last year when the survey went out, there was a lot of controversy going on
Right.
at the time. So I think that's why we had a lot more responses too.
Probably. They were overall more positive, but you're right, there was big controversy happening. Not that there's not controversy now, but there's different kinds of controversy.
this year more than any year that I've been here, there is this sense of distrust between administration and the school site.
Yeah,
Specifically.
and the junior high's changed dynamics completely from last year to this year. I mean, last year was 6, 7, 8, brand new principal, and vice principals. This year, it's different. It's changed. And at least a couple times a year, I know at least a couple times, and then we could take the medium from.
Could we have the email come from the board president instead of from the district office? It would still end up being tallied by SurveyMonkey and pulled, but if the email came specifically from the board, we could see if that changes stuff too.
Yeah, and I mentioned that to you at the beginning.
That's the intent, I think next year we know to do that, and there's some things I think we've changed to get valid results, to make sure we don't have duplicate people filling it out. There's some things we can do, we can talk about that.
So I think going back to your question, Rob, I mean, I've already looked through all of this and I've already set goals for myself. I mean, that's the kind of person I am. I've talked to Tyson about this a little bit as well. I think one of the things for this specific question that I could do more of going into next year or even going throughout the summer is this whole concept of doing small kind of town hall meetings with school sites. So sharing with them not just once a year or twice a year, but having it in my schedule intentionally where it's more like an open forum, but also an opportunity for me to share with staff, but also making it for the community. This is where we're headed as a district. This is what you can look forward to the future. Let me better explain, this whole K through 8 idea. Let me better explain what we're trying to do for preschool. Let me better explain this. I think those sort of deliberate opportunities where I'm scheduling intentionally with those school sites and with the community that will address actually a lot of these things, especially when it talks about relationship building, fostering or trying to repair some of the trust issues that you kind of hear about, and empowering everyone about what's happening in the district and what we're doing as far as instructional vision. So I think that's one thing that I've identified that I can do.
So I think that at the end of this, we're going to talk about any changes we want to do to the surveys, whether they're questions or frequency, and we'll go through those details and we'll make sure we get those calendared if the board wants to go in a different direction. Is the board going through them in this way? Do we want to go through them a little quicker? Because there's a lot of questions when you add all these together. Read them, go through them. Do we want to elaborate on any one of them, or how do you want me to go through?
If there's one that stands out more than the others,
Just stop me.
I think with the 10, we go through them one by one.
Okay. All right, so my superintendent effectively communicates the district's priority of individual student growth. Looks like on that one we had 80% said usually or almost always. And then last year,
So that was 71%.
last year it was a different order, I know.
With a weighted average this year of 3.0.
It's a different question. Okay. So the random questions, so I'm doing this, and they're not the same.
You're not
order, so-
comparing apples to apples?
No, I didn't realize that. So this is question 2. So we went from, on this one, last year was 76%. This might change our discussion now. 76%. This year, it was 80%, so it went up. Last year was question 2.
71% this year, Rob. You're looking at 79 under almost always.
sorry.
71.
I had it wrong. 71. Okay, sorry. So last year then was 76 and a half. So it's going to be interesting. I'll have to jump back and forth. Let me go back to the question 2
What
then,
about then?
which was,
No, question 3. Empowers me to achieve the
I'm on
district's
question
vision.
2 because that wasn't a direct apples-to-apples comparison either, I don't think. That was 79 last year.
With,
This year was 73.
are you talking about treated with respect and dignity?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the weighted average change on that? Do you still have that? Or you changed up?
3.09 for 3.23.
Okay?
Now, question 3. My superintendent empowered me to achieve the district's vision.
This year is 2.83 weighted average from last year.
That's what I'm trying to find.
I was trying to give you time to get there.
There it is. 3.23 last year.
Okay, so
It was
the,
almost the same.
yeah.
I know. It is comparing this. It is. Well, no, question 10 just happened to have the same 3.23. Okay, so,
I think once we get through these 10, we need to go upstairs.
yes, that was the plan. When we go into executive session, talk about comments, we're gonna move.
But we'll still need to do admins too.
Oh, that's right. My superintendent effectively communicates the district priority of individual growth. That was what we just looked at. It's 3.0 this year. And it was 3.2 last year. The next question. My superintendent ensures that our district facilities are adequate, safe, clean, inviting, and conducive to teaching and learning. 2.91 this year. 3.26 last year. 80% last year found that it was usually or almost always. This year it was 60.
66 and a half.
Not hearing anything about that, so I'll move on to question 6. My superintendent expects me to use technology in my classroom to further student learning. We got rewarded this year, right? That was 3.19. We'll do over the same.
15 skipped that one. That's a pretty big number. The other numbers have been half that or close to that. Or close to half or less. And I know that not every question applies to every person and every staff member.
It went from 3.4 to 3.2. So what were you saying, Jim? Oh, it's
15
skipped it.
people skipped it. And so I know that not everything applies to every
Yeah,
staff member.
22 skipped it last time. too.
Okay.
My superintendent creates opportunities for myself and others to share ways we can improve our priority of individual student growth. 2.8 this year. I do not like that it's random now. Last year it was 3.17. Question 8, my superintendent ensures that our students are provided with curriculum that is rigorous, standards-based, and enables all students to prepare for their future college and/or career. 3.05. Last year was 3.24. Question 9, my superintendent understands the challenges of my work and provides resources and support to make me a more effective employee. 2.56. Last year it was 2.92, so that was probably one of the lower ones last year as well. And question 10, my superintendent ensures that I am evaluated in accordance with established procedures. 3.21 this year. 3.43 last year. So we did see a trend of a decrease in that. Or a decrease in responses as well. Does the board want to talk any more about those results?
Do you have the overall? Between the two
Yeah,
years?
so total weighted average, 3.24 last year, 2.97 this year, so a difference of 0.27.
That's about average across each of the different things. It wasn't like there was one answer that dramatically dropped. They all dropped about that same amount throughout, so.
So they call it an average.
Yes, average. I think I used that word actually.
Okay. So, no more, board will discuss any specifics about that anymore?
I'm curious to see what the admin report's gonna say, but I know that we need to go upstairs because it's getting,
Okay.
I'm afraid people aren't.
So we're just gonna decide to pick up our things and move upstairs, so. Go ahead. We'll move on to then the admin evaluation. We do have someone who opened up last year's, right, so something with the comparison. So the first question was 22 respondents of the administrators. I remember it was 35 was it sent to? Is that the number I was told? Okay. So a high percentage of respondents there. Go ahead. We'll move on to then the admin evaluation. We do have someone who opened up last year's, right? So something with the comparison. So the first question was 22 respondents of the administrators. I remember it was 35 was it sent to? Is that the number I was told? Okay. So a high percentage of respondents there. The first question was, this school district is a good place to work. And the nice thing is nobody put worry. So sometimes, usually, or almost always, and 90% said usually or almost always. Weighted average 3.64.
Last year's weighted average was 3.52.
Went up. That's good. Next question. My superintendent is knowledgeable of laws and policies that govern the schools and the district. Interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen this before. So nobody put sometimes. There was one respondent said rarely, and then 94% said usually or always. Weighted average of 3.64.
Last year's weighted average was 3.69, and last year 2 put rarely, none put sometimes.
Okay. My superintendent creates opportunities for staff and others to share ideas, suggestions, etc. No one put rarely on this, and then looks like about 48 plus 28. 76% said usually or almost always for a weighted average of 3.24.
Last year was 3.61. That was the biggest drop so far.
Okay. The superintendent creates opportunities for staff and others to share ideas, suggestions, etc.
So last year, 2 put rarely and 1 put sometimes.
Now 5 put sometimes.
And
How many responded last year?
29.
Yeah, so a good percentage less respond this year. High percentage, good isn't a good number there, word to use there. Our superintendent actively seeks resources for our schools and school district. 80% said usually or almost always, 81%, and 3.43 was the weighted average.
Last year was 3.76. And nobody put rarely or sometimes last year.
Okay.
So last year was higher, but
Right. My superintendent maintains open two-way communication with district staff. 2.91 weighted average. This is kind of all over the board. What was it last year?
3.41.
Big drop. So this would be maybe the biggest drop of any of the questions. And so let's talk about this. I mean, this is a big deal what someone perceives. And but it's also, to me, it's an easy one to correct.
Easier. Right.
Well, yeah, perceptions are correct, but you can correct the communication. Obviously, you can communicate more, but 4 said rarely, and 3 said sometimes.
Last year was 2 rarely and 3 sometimes. But there was a lot more almost always this last year.
So I can speak to that a little bit. So I know I have received direct feedback on this from a couple of people, and one, I don't think it's my style. I mean, it could change, but some people have asked whenever there's gatherings where people are getting together, say for instance for a celebration or for a lunch, which they do, they have asked me to be more open to participate in that. I have some difficulty with that. I have done that somewhat throughout the year, but it's not my style. One of the things I've shared, I mean, I could change it. I try to keep a distance from district office staff for a specific reason, and that is because of evaluation. I think I just don't ever want to get too close to anyone. It's going to cause me to blur the lines. So I know that has been direct feedback to me, but it's something that can change. So I think opportunities for me to get together with district leadership more often is what they're looking for.
So let's talk about the intent of this question for the board. What does the board intend by asking about this? To me, my intent wasn't to make sure he's hanging out with gatherings like that, but to make sure he's just being communicating priorities.
So,
Maybe to reword it.
And is willing to listen to, both sides.
so when it says district staff, is the administration staff, or is it all the staff at the school?
I would say it's the district leaders, any district leaders, because that's who's included.
Because the
Maybe
district
that
leaders
needs
are
to
who
be
responded to it.
questioned.
Instead of to district staff, to district
Yes.
leadership?
I would find it hard to talk to anyone for them to tell you that I don't have an open door policy, or they can't come in at any time, so I have not communicated on a consistent basis the priorities of the district or my expectations. I think I do that a lot. I actually think that some people are doing this different because of the specific feedback that I've received from a couple of individuals.
Yeah, when I first look at it, I see staff as being all district.
All staff.
All staff, and if your administration is filling out this survey,
I see what
they're
you're
not
saying.
seeing
I see what
the
you're saying.
communication with the staff
I see.
So you're saying we need to ask this question,
in a different way.
right, maintaining an open two-way communication with district leadership and administration is what Ken is trying to say instead of also.
Well, if Chris's suspicion is right, well, I don't think it would change the results, even though we're asking, because if it is about coming to gatherings.
Right, but your question was, what is the intent of the question? The intent of the question is not going to social events and those kinds of things. It's having an I think, open two-way communication with leadership. We want to know what leaders feel about open two-way communication with leadership, because their perception of whether it's staff or not is different. But we want to know about...
During that 8 to 5 hours.
Right. You know, do they feel...
I don't know if changing that word is going to change the result. That's what I'm saying. Maybe we need to change it.
But you bring up a good question, Ken. I'm wondering if some of them are thinking of staff overall in the district.
Staff overall in the district,
Right.
yes.
Because I know that there's that sense as well that teachers would like me to have more one-on-one conversations with them.
And I've heard the same thing. I've heard the same thing.
It almost seems like the more you've been in the classrooms, the more they want you in the classrooms.
Yeah. And I can say, I have certainly, in the elementary schools, I am there on a regular basis. DOHS, maybe MMS, not so much the high school. But I've been in all teachers' classrooms, but not a lot of individual conversations.
Yeah,
I
and
can say that.
I think when we get into the comments, we'll see that in a few of the comments, that
Yeah, no, I
more
saw that
presence
as
is
well.
needed.
So what are our feelings about this question?
So, I think from some of the comments already, there's like this elitist districts group feeling. But is it, I think the intent of our question is, do we want to know what the admins think about communication with all staff, or do we want to know what the admins think about communication with admins? That's, I think, where we need to start with what is our intent with this question, and then reword it from there. Because yes, I think it needs to be reworded to be more clear. But we need to figure out what our intent is.
Can I ask for clarification? Admin being principals, vice principals, and directors at the district office? Is that this group?
That's what I consider. Is that?
Not across the district.
Right, we said directors.
Basically non-OEA.
That's why I would have a hard time believing that they meant like just two-way communications expectations. Because I meet with all of them every 2 weeks.
That's, you know, as he
And
says,
we're setting
all
expectations.
the principals once a month, so,
Yeah.
I mean, there's communication. That's why I asked to clarify.
Right.
It's on a regular basis with all leadership.
So, I think because this is an admin question, we need it to, I think that we need to define that we want to know if admins, district directors, vice principals, principals, do they feel like there's an open two-way communication between them and Dr. Hurst?
Can I just explore this a little bit more when you say open communication? Are you meaning like open door policy, the ability to come in, or establish meetings that I'm available to talk about expectations, what is your work?
I think both of those, and then also in a, like when you're doing an evaluation or when they're coming to you with an idea or something like that, that they feel like what they're saying is being valued and heard. Not just, I'm telling you you're not doing your job correctly, or I'm telling you these things. It's an open communication back and forth. So yes, those things that you said, but that also that they're being heard about their
So
concerns.
then I would lean more towards what Ken was saying, that it's probably more, they're thinking of district overall, because I just have a hard time believing that they would say that I'm not doing that with each one of them.
I think this answer is their perception of you with all staff.
Yeah.
I think that what my question, what I'm saying I think the question should be is, we want to know about how they feel communication with them, with the admins are. We want to know from staff what their opinion is.
That's true.
The admins isn't, their opinion of what your relationship or communication with staff is different. I want staff to tell me about your communication. I want admins to tell me about your communication with admins.
And the next question before we go on, is this expectation in policy right now in our ADLs?
this expectation is in policy, not just in reference to admin, but it's in reference to approachable, and I can't remember all the right terminology, but
A safe, conducive environment,
yes. So I would say this is, yes,
What if we look at this like we would a policy and say, okay, there's been a reasonable interpretation, but maybe we're not, we want a different result in the end, more specific about what they're answering, so let's look to rewrite the policy or rewrite the question in a way that it's very clear about what we're asking. Like, for instance, what if we said, my superintendent provides me with feedback and allows me to respond. It's something like that, right? Isn't that what we mean by this?
but it's not just about feedback. What happens if somebody comes to him with an idea and says, I have this great idea, I really think that we should do this? You're just talking about,
There's
right, it's not just about evaluations.
There's already that question from staff in there. There's a couple surveys that are really similar to those in administration.
Right.
Now, let's compare those.
We're not getting results from the way it's worded, so we need to think about how we word it. So what are we actually asking? I see where I think I understand where you're coming from. What does the rest of the board feel is what we're trying to accomplish with this question? All our questions should somehow tie to our policies, in this case ELs or Ns. And I think there should be an EL, right? So we have to know what does our EL ask.
are these still stakeholders or customers?
No, staff.
No, these guys should all be living in town. Oh, I'm sorry,
They could
there's
be
one or
both.
two that don't live in town.
Okay, because EL3, superintendent shall not cause or allow an unwelcome environment.
And if you have an open communication, that,
And that's kind of my interpretation of the open two-way communication. If I feel like I have an open, so it allows for those ideas to come without fear of
Yeah.
being shot down or repercussions or
Retaliation or whatever.
Yeah, I feel completely comfortable with bringing something to somebody else's attention, and I don't know if that's the intent of the question, but that's my interpretation, that it's open, there's two-way communication, I feel comfortable coming with issues, suggestions. But I think breaking it down between solely administration and with staff, if we have two separate questions saying, if you are in this administration group, answer this one, if you are in the staff, answer this one.
right.
Yeah, and I can see a lot of this too. The staff relayed their points of view to administration. Of course, then administration used that in their evaluation of their survey on this. So definitely we need to separate the two.
I want to make
And
sure
I'm
we're
going back and look.
asking a survey question that does match our policies, otherwise but now we have something that we haven't found to be important in policy, why are we asking the question?
Right, so it's under staff compensation and treatment. Provide a working environment for staff that is safe, civil, or otherwise conducive to teaching and learning. And so I consider that to be the civil, to have, and in some cases, safe,
Right.
depending upon if there's an issue that they're bringing forward, or any part of that. But that open two-way communication is part of that in there.
Okay, that's Dr. Stevens' interpretation, and the rest of the board feel on that?
Yeah, of that, Eva.
I'm asking this because these questions, our ELs have changed since these questions, survey questions were originally chosen. Maybe we have some policies that doesn't fit anymore. I want to make sure it just occurred to me, I want to make sure
I think that question's actually referenced in several ELs, where it could be drawn from.
so do we need to reword it next year?
I do think that, just based on, it sounds like Chris feels pretty certain about the administrators, and perhaps their perception of the question meaning or regarding the entire staff of the district is what skews this a bit.
So we just want to change the word to administrators?
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
See, and I just went back and looked too at the staff surveys, and possible questions that could be related to that are the ones that are actually lower.
That's what I was
I think
saying.
district staff and then our first place was district office staff, but maybe we just put me. Someone was answering it, it says me. So they're gonna
Yes.
answer for themselves.
Right. As an administrator.
Right, I like that.
Yeah.
Because this is the administration survey. It's me, only administrators.
Would that be agreeable to just change district staff to me in the end? I don't think we're gonna have to worry about changing the intent of the question, but just clarify really what it's talking about.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
And if it doesn't change, then we know, okay, no, that was the results last year, that's what it was. And people didn't interpret it like we, okay?
Yeah.
Next question, my superintendent manages available funds well. 90% said usually or almost always weighted average of 3.5.
Last year was 3.59.
Pretty close. Question 7, my superintendent provides resources to me in utilizing technology. We rewrote this. Let's read last year so we have an idea.
Hold on. Okay, last year it says, my superintendent provides assistance to me in utilizing technology.
And our feeling with that was maybe people think that it would be like one-on-one assistance, so we've changed it to resources. This year,
Wait, can you read it in its entirety?
my superintendent provides resources to me in utilizing technology. 3.36 the weighted average this year. What was it last year?
3.30.
Okay, it didn't really change that much. My superintendent ensures that the school is a place for learning. 3.7 weighted average. That everyone was usually or always on that. So
3.81 was last year's number.
so it's 32% usually, 68% almost always.
Last year, 3.7% said rarely, that was one person. 2 people said usually, and 89% said almost always.
Okay. Question 9, my superintendent is a positive person who maintains his composure in difficult situations. 100% said usually or almost always, 3.73 weighted average.
Last year was 3.86, so last year we had one say rarely, one say usually, and everyone else said almost always.
Better this year. My superintendent actively promotes the schools and school district. We had a 3.4 weighted average, 86% usually or almost always.
Last year was 3.93. No one said rarely or sometimes last year. So that's a big drop. That's another half a point.
3 people said sometimes.
I think we need to talk about it when it's that big.
What is
Actively promoting the school and school district.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what's your interpretation on that?
I think, going back last year, I was out to all the communities, talking to business partners, but it was synonymous with the bond work, so my directors were directly involved in that, so they saw me, like, actively having those conversations with business partners. There was not that work that happened this school year, so there actually has been a drop-off. I mean, it goes back to the conversation that I had earlier with you and the individual conversation that I had with Tyson around, how do I continue to form community members? Because I did share with Tyson, I mean, that was exhausting for me physically. I don't know if I would want to do that, so how do I bring people to me instead of me going out to all of those businesses? So this whole concept of school meetings or town hall meetings and having multiple opportunities throughout the school year for people to come to me. And I'm promoting the school district. So I did a lot of that last year.
I thought 3.4 is good personally.
It is.
It's a high expectation to expect to do what you did for the bond. I think it's
Year round. But at the same time, the idea of how we're changing linkage could change this as well. Because whether it's you or someone else that you're sending, in some cases it will be you, in some cases it,
But like I said, regardless of, what the board is going to decide or what goes on my evaluation, I've already shared my goals with Talia, so we already have a plan moving forward, so I take everything regardless.
Do we want to talk about the survey results anymore, or do we want to go into comments? Do we want to talk about, would this be an appropriate time to talk about how we administer the surveys, or should that be at the end of all of our discussions about surveys?
What was the overalls again?
Oh, gotcha. So the 2018-19 million average was 3.455. Last year was 3.65. There was a difference of 0.193.
so less of a drop than the staff, you know.
And that's in there, so kind of,
Yeah,
if you want to bring it up at any time, it's in there.
different one, yeah.
I think how these were, what was the word you used? Given? Administered? I think we should talk about that now, whatever the word was you used.
No, I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
You said, is now a good time to talk about the way that these were administered, or should we do that after the executive session?
Like the frequency that we administer the surveys.
Oh, no, I'm with you. Okay.
If we want to change it, we want to say, hey, let's reduce it to this many questions or whatever, and ask them multiple times, that's what I meant.
Just a really quick comment, I would just kind of, you look at 22 responded to me, the administration, though, you should have pretty close to 100%. So it's that other 1/3 why.
So you said there's 36,
35. We said that
35 in wheels, that's 21.
Why wouldn't you want 100%?
Why?
Well, if there's someone that's unhappy, and there's
Especially
usually the one that's
administration.
answering the rarely and the never and those kinds of things, then
What
You're
can we
not
do to
gonna
help raise that?
I think we ask anyone who studies surveys, never get, you're always only going to get a certain percentage of responses.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless, and I do think that what I've read is kind of what Tyson alluded to, is that the people who don't respond, a large majority of them, is because they think they're going to find out no strongly one way or the other, so.
Yeah, but that's true, but you think, you expect certain groups to respond a little bit more than.
And they did.
And they did a much, much higher percentage, more than double than what the other ones
Yeah.
was. So, okay, so I still think quarterly for these guys as well. I think it's gonna drop the numbers, percentages that respond, but I think it would be valuable to see those things as well. So do we wanna say like 4 questions as well for them? And when we send out the email request, I think we need to say, there's only 4 questions, please respond.
I don't want to become the Blackboard messenger where they go, another board survey. Just going to throw out, maybe we should just do mid-year, end of year.
I was thinking twice a year, you know.
So
I was thinking
maybe in
twice a
the
year.
end,
Okay.
people like that, we get good feedback from that, and they say, yeah, you should do this for time words.
I'm totally fine with that. I'm not offended that you've gone from my 4 to 2.
I don't want to offend you.
Well, it might be too much now at this point.
Right, but I do think it would be essential to say, there's only 4 questions on this mid-year, if that's the number we're gonna go with, and there's 10 questions on the end of year kinds of concept, because if I see something that goes, oh, there's only 4 questions, compared to our board self-evaluation of like 63 questions. I mean, I don't want to tell them, hey, we're answering 63 questions. That's not important, but I knew there was a lot in there, and so I delayed answering myself. But if I see something that's like 4 questions, sure, I have 5 minutes, I can do that.
How do you get valid results if there are 2 different surveys? Maybe I'm missing something.
You can ask the same questions both times. These are the things we're focusing on this year. These are the things we should be asking now. These are the lowest numbers, or these are the biggest goals that have been set. So those are the questions we should ask. Those were the lowest last year. That's what the biggest change is that we're going to be trying to make. And we ask those exact same 4 questions in the end of the year.
Gotcha.
Right. That's how you can compare apples to apples. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Okay. How's the board feel about that? 4 questions at mid-year. So let's identify those 4. So do we just want to go with the 4 lowest of each?
Because they're not the same questions on both, huh?
So for this year's survey, the 4 lowest were question 9.
Wait, are you talking admin?
Or staff. Staff.
Okay.
And actually, interestingly enough, there's 4 that for staff that were below 3. So,
Okay.
and they were 3, 5, 7, and 9. All the odd number ones.
Okay, so number 3 is, my superintendent empowers me to achieve the district's vision. Okay, that's 3 and 5. My superintendent ensures that our district facilities are adequate, safe, clean, inviting, and conducive to teaching and learning. That's an interesting.
To me, I kind of have a feeling why that's done lower this year is because of the crowding situation, adding 6th grade to it. Teachers, I know, have said they're a little more cramped, so I think that's where that's one of those things that, it was just this year. Last year it was completely.
And adequate is a relative term. We consider 6th grade wing, for the most part, at the high school, adequate. Those that are in it may not use that term.
Yeah.
Safe, are there a few people that disagree with Rob's broadening of the EL to include up to Army people? Did that?
We've changed that policy, you're right.
To some people.
Rob's?
Original writer, Thomas Jefferson.
Blame that on Tony now. He's like, yeah, blame it on Tony. He's
When you say the EL that we adopted, that one, that some folks.
So do we want to keep, I'm sorry, taking
It
over.
would be nice if we kept it earlier in the part of next year to see if we're going to get the same response or if it's going to be different. Because then we'll know if it was just circumstances or a couple situations that caused it.
So is that a yes?
Yeah. Yes.
Sure. Okay. Number 7 is, my superintendent creates opportunities for myself and others to share ways we can improve on our priority of individual student growth. I think that's a good one.
Almost like two-way communication, similar question. Okay.
And number 9, oh, wasn't there one more?
Oh, I thought you asked.
I think you started with number 1, but number 9 is actually lower. So.
No, I started with 3. I did 3, 5, 7, and this is 9. My superintendent understands the challenges of my work and provides resources and support to make me a more effective employee. I think this is a good one because the 18-19 one, there's no like, here's the biggest number. They're almost between rarely, sometimes, usually, and always, almost equal in every single one of those responses, more so than any other one. So I think this would be a really good one too.
Okay. Then if you do the same thing for admin, number 5 for sure.
Do you want me to read that one right now?
Yes, please.
5 says, my superintendent maintains open two-way communication with me, will be what it says.
3?
My superintendent creates opportunities for staff and others to share ideas, suggestions, etc. That's the staff and others part.
Similar question.
It is a similar question, but you've set a goal already to try to accommodate this.
So I still think that's a question, because there are similarities in the staff questions that we're already in this.
Right, I agree.
It's down a little bit here. So the next one is 7.
My superintendent provides resources to me in utilizing technology.
And 10.
And 10 is, my superintendent actively promotes the schools and school district. also you have set a goal around that, so we can
Yep.
gauge if that's working.
So here's my other question. Do we want to change our survey answers to be, instead of words, sometimes, usually, almost always, to say strongly agree, somewhat disagree, strongly disagree? Would that help some of these concerns people have with it doesn't make sense what I'm answering here? I see that, I mentioned last night to Jen, I see that in a lot of surveys that I've seen, like I do online, that verbiage.
I had a request to add, don't know.
And we have don't know on,
Comment was in there quite a bit.
Yeah.
we don't know on the community or the school ones. Yeah. But not on the, I don't think we should have don't know for admin.
Right.
They should have. But even with staff, there's certain things that they're saying, well, I'm not in the classroom, so I don't know. Well, that's your perception.
Yep.
So whether you're in it or not, are you perceiving it's happening? That's all that matters. But here's the thing, they don't have to answer it, they can skip it.
Right.
And maybe if we made it clear in the instruction, if you don't feel it applies to you, you can skip this question. Maybe that's all that needs to happen.
And you need to use the word perception. Is it your perception that this is taking place in the instruction?
In the first, in the opening thing, okay?
But going back to your verbiage on that, I think you would get not a better response, but I think it might help people gauge it a little better. I mean, almost always, yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? I think better verbiage on that would help me answer those.
So my superintendent is a positive person who maintains his composure in difficult situations. My superintendent is almost always that person, or I strongly agree with that statement. I think that's a better way to ask it, or I strongly agree, I strongly disagree are your two. You're not saying absolutely not or absolutely yes. You say I have pretty strong feelings that I agree or disagree. Then you say what's the other one that says somewhat agree, somewhat disagree.
And almost always, and a strongly agree, that to me, I'm going to answer two different, like almost always, that's 3 out of 5, right? But strongly agree might be a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5, you know what I mean?
So hopefully it doesn't totally throw out our comparison next year, right? But I think hopefully it'll make people feel more comfortable answering the question. That's what I'm trying to get at. Does the board agree with that change? Because that's an easy change to make in the survey month.
I think it allows me to better answer the question.
A more decisive answer.
Yeah. And then the yes or no, we leave alone. And then,
But the yes and no's are only in the board ones. No yes and no's are in the superintendent
Right.
surveys.
and then, I felt like there was one or two board, get a little bit ahead of myself, but board staff questions that allowed I don't know, but in the community question, the same question, but I don't know wasn't an option. So I want to make sure that we're being consistent there, but, and that might have been one of the ones where people said, I don't know, should have been an option, but we can eliminate I don't know altogether if we make it clear in the statement that if you don't know or don't feel implied, you can skip. Because I don't know, we don't want to, I think part of our discussion before was that we don't want to weight their answer based on them not knowing. So we don't want to make it count against us just because that person didn't know.
But maybe it's that I don't know is what we need to work on some of too, even though it's...
Sometimes, like, there are some that, from the staff ones, there were some that had huge numbers of skips. So, because I look at some of all those little details, and so I think sometimes we go, there was a whole bunch of skips here, and then we can start to evaluate.
But that's going to be, for staff, it's going to be, not necessarily, I don't know, but I don't think it doesn't apply to them. They don't believe it applies to them. Because they're in the transportation center, they don't know what goes on in the classroom. That's some of what I saw in the comments. So that's a little bit tough to gauge why we skipped it for staff. For community members, it'll be always, I don't know, I think it should always apply to them because it's a perception of that. I think that we need to, right now, over the next couple of weeks, as a board, come back with some suggested changes so we can dial it in for next year. 'Cause if we wait till next year, we're not gonna know what we talked about. Right. But I think we need to be clear about what we want the survey to look like next year, or at the midway point, so that the changes can be made now, and then we don't have to revisit it. Because that was a little difficult. We had notes from last year, which was good, but then we didn't change it until the other day. So I guess the request for me for the board is make some recommendations for changes, and we'll put them together, and some ones that are common, we'll make sure we change that. Okay? All right, so the next thing is going to be, we're going to go into an executive session to discuss the comments. How much time? I put 30 minutes in the agenda. Does the board feel like that's not too much? We don't want to have too much, because then we don't have enough. That's okay. We can come back out and go back into executive session. But
So the administrators, superintendent 7 answered. Oh wait, am I in the right year?
And then 66, I believe,
And
on staff.
66 answered from staff. So are we reading each one? I guess is what I need to know before I could say, yeah, I think 30 minutes is enough.
what does the board want to do?
Start with 30.
30. After the executive session, we're going to break for lunch, and so when we'll come back in after executive session to just recess to lunch. Okay? Everyone good with that? Okay. All right. Okay, we came out of executive session because our 30 minutes is up. We have 30 more comments to go through. How much more time do we need?
20?
We could do
We
it.
cannot. Okay, so we'll go back in the executive session for another 20 minutes to finish going through these comments. We are out of executive session. As stated before, no action taken. We are going to recess for break for lunch, and we will continue our agenda at that time. All right, so moving on to item D3. Review the superintendent annual summative evaluation. So the summative evaluation is basically a summary of all the monitoring reports so far for this school year. And I believe the way we purposely set it up in the calendar last year was that to date, everything has been evaluated, all ELs have been evaluated, the only things that have not been are the games. And so this is just a summary of all the comments that the board came up with, whether or not they're in compliance or not, and if there's any comments with that. Now you'll see, it probably makes sense as a comparison, when we put all these together compared to last year. So if you want to click on the comparison, last year there was comments either not in compliance, or in compliance with exceptions for EL 6, EL 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. We eliminated some ELs and changed some numbering. So if you look at,
That was convenient that you put the names of them because of those changes, thank you. Because last year we changed the numbering.
you say you mean,
Yes, I was looking at her when I said you, you're right, I'm sorry.
so I guess you could look at it and say much better for Dr. Hurston that of the ELs there were only 2 this year that had any comments. Both were in compliance with an exception, EL 7 and EL 14. Now, there was one that was the same as last year, and that's balanced in student diversity. Now, last year, balanced in student diversity was not in compliance. This year was in compliance with an exception. So we're going to read those 2 specifically. Well, actually, I'll go back. There's a remark I want to read from budget planning. It said the budget presentation was well thought out and in a format understandable by all. Thank you. And so that's good. Dr. will follow that same format this year. We did like that change last year. EL 7 had an exception. In relation to the short-term and long-term facilities plan, the evidence provided to us only shows how a new plan will be built without any reflection on the current plan that should be in place. EL 11, student conduct and discipline, there was a comment. Thank you for having a district-wide policy and discipline. It is helpful and more consistent for everyone. EL 13, advanced academic programs, there was a comment. Great strides have been made in this area, but automatic enrollment is not fully being used currently. According to the monetary response documents, this will be in effect with 2019 and 2020 school year. And then EL 14, balance of student diversity, which was out of compliance last year. So while we were in compliance with exception, while we were making progress toward complete balance, we still have work to do in this area. Your suggestions for further improvement look like a great step. Safety of students and staff found to be in compliance with a comment. I'm not sure the superintendent's interpretation of the education is the same as the board's. Although there was some education provided for staff, students, and community at the forum, March 5th, 2019, I hope for more educational opportunities throughout the year. It is good that the committee is being educated on several options, but the last sentence of this section was intentionally worded to include staff, students, and community. One thing I would say is, and we missed this as a board, whenever a comment is made by an individual board member, but then approved in the document by the whole board, any I should be changed to we. In the future, we missed that when we approved it. Just remark, this policy has made great improvements since last review. So I would just say, commend Dr. Hurst, definitely big improvement on compliance and exceptions from last year. What we don't have are the thanks policies 1, 2, and 3. We'll monitor them in the next meeting and then in June as well. Any questions or comments on the summative evaluation? Then move on to the next item, D4, preliminary discussion regarding superintendent contract.
I can't. Unless it's sure.
So, I want to know, Dr. Hurst requested, well, back up. Last year, the board identified that they wanted to get contracts from similar districts, and that, I believe we looked for districts that were policy governance districts.
Yes.
And districts that had a graduation rate, higher graduation rate, like that was one of our goals. Was there any other
I
criteria?
don't think we had, no, it wasn't policy governance.
It was, districts that were similar to ours as far as size.
We do that this past week.
Yeah, it was a graduation rate.
Graduation rate.
Let me
No, we looked at anything between 2,000 and like 8,000, and that we wanted it to have like 75% low and reduced lunches or more, and we had to go down to 50 so we could pick up 8. We wanted some from both sides of the state, but predominantly this side, and that they were doing, that their graduation rates were the same as or better than ours.
Right.
So,
Jen remembered that much better than me.
meeting minutes?
Yes.
The meeting minute says the board provided feedback that they would look at superintendent contracts in districts that are similar in size to the Othello School District. Additionally, districts were selected that had a social economic status greater than 50% and selected the 8 top districts with the highest 4-year cohort graduation rate.
That's right. So graduation rate was a big focus.
Yeah.
Nice job. So what I asked Dr. Hurst to do is look at those same districts, as long as they had not fallen out of their cohort graduation rate. Maybe if that dropped, we didn't necessarily want to compare that, but I remember the discussion being, we want to compare the salary of superintendents in districts that are doing well. Not just because you're close to us or the same size or in the CWAC, but what kind of results are they getting with their students since we had a good graduation? So they made the same requests this year. They haven't gotten contracts back from all of them yet. But these are the 3 they have. This is just a preliminary discussion to essentially say, is the board going to use these districts to compare contracts again this year? Now, I would say we're not looking to make big changes in contracts necessarily, but we can always look at the bonus incentives potentially on that. What's the board's feelings?
So we're just looking at the bonus?
Well, we can also adjust the pay for role, right? So we've done some averaging of that. Last year was Dr. Hurst's first raise based on the averages that we got from these districts. Once we get all these contracts back, I'll put them together in a spreadsheet like we've done last year in a board meeting coming up, we'll go over. Hopefully we get these in the next board meeting. You just want to ask the board if we want to go in a different direction or if we want to follow the same philosophy as last year.
I'm okay with utilizing the same philosophy.
Once we see the contracts, we can always have another discussion about it, but just want to make sure we're not asking for contracts that in the end we don't want.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
That's a good way to judge it.
This is really interesting. We're not going to talk much more about it. We're just going to wait till we get the existing ones and then they'll be compiled. Okay. So we'll move on to item D5. This will be the review of the board survey from staff and community. Now, this was the first time we had comments for the board surveys. That's my memory. We asked last year to include the comment section, right?
I don't remember.
In any case, we didn't put comments for us.
You remember all the Chris's stuff, but you couldn't remember all of it.
Apparently, I can't remember board stuff.
And the comments in the public section because the reason the Chris's were in private or in executive because some of them were complaints. These might be considered complaints, but there's no complaints about any individual board members. If it's complaints, it's a complaint about the board as a whole or the district as a whole. And there was one staff name that was blacked out on here. So that's why I left them in there. But we'll start with the evaluation from staff. And we will do the same thing. We got the yearly average comparison. And then the evaluation from last year. Would you like to do that again, Jan? Or
How many questions are there this time?
probably be random again. 29.
Oh, I don't think so. If they're random, that's way too hard. We're going to look at averages.
But we learned at 10 already. I don't know how that's possible.
It's a yes or no, so the yeses are weighted 5.
So is that,
Yeah.
So you for me to compare those two then?
Yeah.
10, 1, 10 from last year.
Yeah.
So, how are we doing this then if we're going to compare ourselves to last year?
Yeah, I think the overall percentage is the only way we could,
So,
it's taking a lot of time.
alright. The board takes the time to learn about important issues facing schools through actions such as seeking input from teachers, students, and administrators. 61.5% said we do that frequently or occasionally.
70 last year.
Okay. I'm going to go through them and the board stop me if we want to discuss them more. How's that? The board discusses and researches events and trends in the larger community that may affect schools and students. We had approximately 58% said frequently and occasionally. 25% did not know. Did we have, I don't know last year, or we had that?
I don't know, Zona.
Okay.
66% frequently, occasionally, and 19% I don't know.
Okay.
So they became more I don't knows over the year? That's interesting.
New staff.
Is this a staff one?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, got it.
The board recognizes the superintendent as the chief executive officer and educational leader of the district. 79%, sorry, 98% said frequently or occasionally.
98.8.
Pretty good number. Although one person did feel we never do that. The board communicates its decisions to all affected by them. 73% said frequently or occasionally.
81%.
The board keeps informed about what children are learning through reports on scholastic achievement, vocational programs, and impacted extracurricular activities. 86% felt that we do.
86%.
That's true. I feel supported in my work by the board. 61% well supported.
66 last
66 last year. This one was a big deal to me. I always want people to feel supported by us and their work. It's really subjective, right? What does that mean? Maybe some people mean that means they have to come in and actually see what I'm doing. So I get that. That's not something that we do as a board, other than the one visit a year. And we only visit certain classrooms, so I could get that. But I will say that it was 50% 2 years ago, 66 last year, and then 61 this year. So
we had how many answer this survey this time?
163.
And how,
Well, 163 last year.
okay,
we're close, 153 this year.
okay, and how many staff did the superintendent evaluation?
207, so about 15 more.
Okay, 50 more did the superintendent over the board one, okay.
I believe the board participates in professional development opportunities available at regional, state, and national levels. That was 88%.
89% last year.
I have read through the board's ANS policies and understand the direction the board wants to take our district. 69%, frequently or occasionally.
74% last year.
And I don't know what ANS policies are. 21.5% this year. That's a
15.5% last year.
It's interesting. The higher percentage don't know what the ANS policies are. Again, it might be new staff.
Yeah.
A board member who shared information with me personally that I know should have been kept confidential. I'm going to go by people. 12 staff members said yes to that, and 137 said no. I really don't, it doesn't matter to me what that number is or what percentage. That always concerns me.
What was last year's number?
Did we
It was
raise that?
Because rewritten, so.
Board members are able to hold confidential items in confidence. Last year, there was 118 yes, 42 no.
And we felt that people could think that that means when they say something to us, we don't keep it confidential. And that's not what our intent of that question was. Do people feel that we keep confidential issues of our nature confidential? So it's not a good comparison to last year because it is written differently. All I would say is that as board members, we need to be clear about what's confidential and not repeat it. And there's sometimes when I'll share something with someone and I'll tell them, I'll say, I can share this with you because it's not a executive session material, it's not confidential. So that's always a good idea to practice that. They might think it's confidential.
Right. That's what I was just going to say, maybe something that we know that's not confidential, and speak to a staff member, and they think it is, and that's where they get this interpretation.
For sure. So, just to be aware of that. The board handles conflict openly and constructively. Got about 75% yes. Frequently or occasionally, sorry.
84% last year.
The board explicitly examines the downside or possible pitfalls of any important decision it's about to make. 72% frequently or occasionally last year.
76% last year.
When faced with an important issue, the board often brainstorms, generating a list of creative approaches or solutions to the problem. About 80% last year. Or this year, sorry.
82% last year.
Before reaching a decision on important issues, the board requests input from students, staff, or its community likely to be affected by the decision. 69%, frequently or occasionally.
71% last year.
The board shows an awareness of the impact its decision will have on the community. 72%, frequently or occasionally.
80% last year.
Question 13 and 14 are really similar in what they're asking, right? But there was a big difference in one from last year. The other one was very close. Board encourages the public to attend board meetings. 91% frequently or occasionally. 2% 3 people, but we never encouraged the public to attend.
This was 94% last year. There was one person that said never, 10 rarely.
We need to get those people on robocall.
They might have opted out. The board has formed committees that include staff and community representatives and allows them to report their findings in board meetings. This was, I like the results of this. So 64% said yes, only 6% said no, and 30% didn't know, and I can understand that. We don't have a lot of committees, so, but people who really didn't feel we did that was a small number. So that was good to know. And I think there was a really good awareness of this facility committee that was set up this last time.
54% said yes last year, 8% said no. Excuse me, and 38% said I don't know. Okay.
The board and its members maintain open channels of communication with district staff. That is about 76%, frequently or occasionally.
80%.
If the board thinks a group of constituents is likely to disagree with an action it's considering, then make sure to learn how the public feels before rendering the decision. 69%, frequently or occasionally.
72% last year.
The board withstands the pressure of special interest groups. 74%.
80% last year.
Board devotes more time to preparing for the future than it devotes to dwelling in the past. 96% felt that was frequent or occasional.
61% frequently or occasionally last year.
Did we change the wording on that one?
The board devotes more time to putting out fires than it devotes to preparing for the future.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so yeah, that, I think that was more clear on what we were asking.
Right.
The board sets clear organizational priorities for the year ahead. 50% said yes. 41% did not know.
57% said yes, 31% I don't know.
How many said no last year? What percent?
10.8, 11%.
So not much difference in who said we do not. The board discusses where the school district will be 5 years from now. That one we had 83%, frequently or occasionally.
84% last year.
The board makes explicit use of long-term priorities of the school district in dealing with current issues. 84%.
86% last year.
The board conducts an annual superintendent evaluation. 83% said yes, the rest did not know. Nobody said no on that.
71% said yes last year, 29% said I don't know.
Well, we did much better on that one then.
I believe individual board members do not issue instructions to the superintendent. This is really confusing. This should be a strongly agree, or anyway, 30 or 72% said frequently or occasionally, which are what we want people to understand. What was it last year?
46% frequently or occasionally, 38% rarely, and 15% never.
That's much better then. Wow, good. I believe individual board members and or board as a whole does not did we reword this one? It does not? Okay, good. Again, that helped clarify. I believe individual board members and or the board as a whole does not issue instructions to those who report to the superintendent. And this year was 74%.
54% last year.
Good. The board allows the superintendent the autonomy to manage the day-to-day operations of the district. It looks like we have about 96% frequently or occasionally.
We changed that. The board maintains clear accountability by delegating to management only through the superintendent.
Yeah, that's confusing. What was it?
Was it 86% last year?
Okay. reflected the desired results from the word changes that happened. I feel that both end policies reflect the values of our community. 84% said frequently or occasionally.
Change it because I'm comfortable voicing my concerns either to an individual board member or the board as a whole.
Two different ones. This is about end policies reflecting the values of our community.
We didn't have it last year. It's not on here.
Okay, your question is actually R29, this year's 29. So either we moved this question somewhere else or we added this one.
We added one.
So this is,
But they're in the right order? I thought they were randomized.
no,
We don't know. There's only 30 last year.
we're in the, yeah, you're going through the right order, right? Yeah. So we added
Okay,
this
one
one.
was added, that's right. Okay, so 84%. Being this is the first time we asked this question, how does the board feel about that?
That's a good number.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
6% though say never.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about that number.
6 people?
6 people, yeah. And 10 skipped. I haven't been checking skips on this.
Could be the people who don't know what end policies are.
Right, that's just an average number, actually, 10's an average number, because some of them are as high as 20 skip.
Oh, gotcha. Could be some that started and said 29 questions, no thanks.
Good, it's a lot.
I am comfortable voicing my concerns either to an individual member or the board as a whole. 56% said yes.
67% said yes last year.
So that one concerns me.
Wow.
What can we do to improve that?
Maybe we need to have forums as well. Little town meetings?
Well, but they're saying they're not comfortable voicing their concerns. Maybe it's more about, maybe it goes to this fear of retaliation or,
Well, this is staff. I'm sorry, I'm with us now. For a moment.
maybe we'll get some feedback through the comments. Okay. I mean, it's one thing if it wasn't much change from last year, I guess, but it dropped.
Last year was 67, you said? Do you remember?
Yes, I think it's 67.
Okay. That's 12%. That's a big drop.
Okay?
Let's hope for that.
We need to move on to community evaluation or community survey. One thing we didn't talk about, because this comes up every year with the community one, what do we feel for validity in numbers? It's difficult to get the community to fill a survey, right? So 42 people out of our whole community. In the past, it said it's not valid from a standpoint of where we really want to make major changes, but we have to consider all answers. I mean, it's still something we want to talk about.
42. How many?
203 last year.
No. From community?
School board evaluation from community,
Yes.
answered 201, skipped 2.
Well, I thought it was 50
No,
some last year.
last year there was a lot.
There was conflict last year through the
That's
committee. So
true.
that's what got.
There was conflict, but they were, a lot of them were positive.
But that's during conflict, you're gonna have the good come out along with it.
Interesting. I must have misunderstood the numbers when they were reported back to me last year. I was thinking it was in the 50s. So we're way low.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get more this year, so we try to advertise to the community.
No, we did the same thing. I posted on the same places last year that I posted this year.
Okay. I didn't know
There were
that.
some people that said, the link's not working. But I fixed
I
the
did
link.
have one person tell me they responded to the survey because they seen it on your repost.
Okay.
They didn't see it on the others, but they seen it on your repost.
So we posted it by Facebook. Click the link on the district website, the district Facebook page. Was it on the district website also? Okay, it was on the director's Facebook page. And then I posted it to a fellow yard sale online and Othello community events. I asked We Love Othello to post it on theirs. I don't know if that ever got posted.
But from what I'm understanding, is there's a lot of people dropping Facebook, they're not doing Facebook no more. It's now Snapchat or Instagram. There's other means now Facebook has been under a lot of
Right, can we
pressure because of
could we set
there's
up
other
an
means.
event in Facebook and then message people? Because a lot of people still use Messenger. Can we message people like
Messenger.
message? What? However, whatever the right term is. No, not that, please. People in our contacts list. Because you can go, for those that have Facebook, you can go into your contacts and click all Othello and then just send it. You don't have Facebook. I know you don't have Facebook. That's why I was looking at you making that comment. Yes, I made that comment to you.
Can we, I would make a suggestion to send it out on the automation, the robot.
The problem is the name of the link, they have to then type it into that.
I would say,
Say that.
please visit the district website
That would
to
be
take the
good.
survey. I just wonder how many people knew that there was a survey out there.
Did you
Is
guys
this-
get the text message? Because I also sent out the text message and it went straight to a link to the website where they could find the link to the survey.
I don't think I got that. So it was a robocall by text, is what you're saying, so you could link it right there.
Is
I-
it provided in Spanish also?
Yes. So I do through Blackboard, I have the option of doing like email, call, text, directly post it to our website. And, maybe something moving forward of one of the unique things that I actually found out when we had all those film closures. We have like an emergency button where when you go onto our district website, it's the first thing that pops up and you cannot do anything until you acknowledge and put okay. So we might want to do that for the community survey next year or something. But
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the robocall would be a good idea too.
Or the text message or...
It would be interesting to see what these percentages are compared to last year, but I don't know about.
yeah, so Jen, the text message.
Even less, 20%. So I believe the board puts the needs of students above all else, 74% frequently or occasionally.
Where are we at, Rob? What are we doing?
The community evaluation.
Are we gonna do last year's as well? Is that what you?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So just really quick, Rob, that's the text message, how it looked. And it said,
78 frequently or occasionally.
Okay, so it's similar, 74, 78. The board takes the time to learn about important issues facing schools through actions such as seeking input from community, teachers, students, and administrators. 62%.
62%.
The board discusses and researches events and trends in the larger community that may affect schools and students. 57%.
60%.
The board communicates its decisions to all affected by them. 62%.
60.
Hey, we got one better. The board keeps informed about what children are learning through reports on scholastic achievement, vocational programs, and the impact of extracurricular activities. 65% said yes.
69.8 said yes.
And I think that would be higher if a lot of those people knew what went on in our monthly meetings when we received the reports from Dr. Burris though too.
Right.
Right, but that's half of it. They're not watching the meeting,
They're not watching
aware of
meetings,
what
they're not aware of it, so their automatic answer would be no. The ones that don't know that actually goes on all the time.
Yeah, I don't know would be appropriate in that one.
Yes.
Okay. I believe the board participates in professional development opportunities available at regional, state, and national levels. Like 83% said yes.
84%.
Sorry, I said frequently or occasionally. 84 last year, not much change. I went through the board's ends policies that understand the direction the board wants to take our district. 40% frequently or occasionally, 45% do not know what ends policies are.
53% frequently, occasionally, 33.5% didn't know.
That surprises me.
So more people, community, don't know what end policies are this year than last year.
Well, the people who answer